Hello, this is Taya, and welcome to the Police Accountability Report 5-year anniversary live stream. That's right, you heard me correctly. It's been 5 years of reporting on police malfeasance across the country. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Not just about policing, but the community that has grown around the idea that holding police accountable is a serious task that requires all of us to participate. And honestly, that is one of the most important things I've learned in my 5 years of hosting the show. That there are people who care, not just about law enforcement, but how the government in general executes policies more than the mainstream media would have us believe. Meaning the idea that there is a mass movement of indifference and apathy simply ignores the truth that I have witnessed firsthand. Because over these past 5 years, I spoke to people all across the country who care about our rights and our communities. People who are willing to stand up, point a camera, risk an arrest, and come forward and talk to us. It's an amazing community of people who have something in common, the belief that we not only can control our destiny, but we can actually improve the lives of our fellow citizens by doing so. And to help me unpack these ideas, I'm joined by an all-star cast of cop watchers and First Amendment activists that have become literal legends in the world of holding police accountable and government accountable. A group whose passion and commitment to reporting on and documenting police malfeasance is unquestioned. And so just to give you an idea of what's to come, let me give you a quick rundown of the people who will be joining us tonight. So first, we have the often comedic, but also serious cop watcher James Freeman, whose on-screen antics have made him one of the most creative and formidable cop watchers on YouTube. Next is another legend, a YouTuber known as LackLuster. LackLuster has built a YouTube channel with over 1.5 million subscribers, with top-notch investigative reporting on police malfeasance across the country. And then, of course, one of our favorites, Otto The Watchdog, will join the discussion. Otto is another YouTuber who has used comedic and often unorthodox tactics to illuminate just how absurd policing can be in this country. We will also be joined by the renowned cop watcher known as the Batusai, who has actually made case law when he was arrested for filming police in Texas. And finally, we will be speaking to two activists whose work can be best described as hardcore and unrelenting. I'm talking about TomZebra and LauraShark, the incredible duo that has single-handedly held the LA County Sheriff's Office and Police Department accountable. And for the record, there were many other cop watchers we wanted to include, but unless we were going to do a 10-hour live stream, we're just going to have to wait for them to join us next time. And it's quite a lineup, so I'm anxious to get started. But please remember, this is a live show. There may be some technical difficulties, and I will also be looking down in the chat and trying to put your questions and comments on screen, and if possible, have some of our cop watchers respond to them as well. But please give me a little bit of grace because I'm trying to do quite a few things here at the same time. But you know what? I have to find Stephen. I have to get him in here so I can start the show. Now, I know you're thinking, why isn't Stephen here now? Doesn't he know about the live stream? Don't you guys plan for this? Well, to be fair, I'm going to ask our studio manager, Dave, to put Stephen's Google Calendar on the screen so people can see it. Notice how mostly his time is spent outside. The only event on his otherwise meager schedule is this live stream, which is clearly marked by me. So this constant absenteeism is not my fault. But wait, hold on. Dave? I think Dave has located Stephen. Hold on one second. Stephen, there's a live stream.
What's going on?
Stephen, there's a live stream. That's what's going on.
What? Look,
yes.
My calendar said I'm just supposed to be outside. I don't know anything about live stream. I'm working on this new song for the Police Accountability Report intro, which I think is kind of hot.
Please, Stephen, you're not some journalistic Keith Richards. Get in here. Seriously.
I never thought of myself as Keith Richards. Thank you for bringing that up. That's really kind of you.
That was not meant to be a compliment. Please get in here.
Oh. Okay.
Please, just get in
fine.
here.
You want to
Please.
halt my creativity?
Stephen,
fine.
please,
I'll come in as usual.
Just get in here.
You know, no one will leave me alone out here.
This is a live stream.
I just want my peace.
You need to be here in
whatever.
live.
I'm coming in
person to
my
do
hands,
it.
No guitar, no
right
guitar,
now.
no guitar. I'm coming in. Here I am.
Jeez, please get inside. Hi, pardon us. Much like that cat you saw behind him, he's kind of like a stray cat, and he sort of has to be encouraged to come indoors. So while I wait for Stephen to find his way in here, I want to delve a little deeper into the theme I discussed at the beginning of the show, namely community. It was something I've been thinking about quite a bit as I was preparing for the show. I mean, when I first started the Police Accountability Report with Stephen, I had no idea I would still be hosting it 5 years later. And in many ways, the time has flown by. And there are stories that I'm so proud of and instances when we help people assert their lives. But what I've cherished the most from the past 5 years are the relationships we've built with this unique community. And I'm not just talking about our guests, our incredible mods, Noli D and Lacey R. Hi, Noli D. I'm talking about all of you, the people who comment and offer a fresh perspective on our work, and sometimes even push back. And most importantly, the victims of police malfeasance and brutality who contact us and have the courage to tell their stories to us. And of course, I include in this community the people who gather for our live streams and join our premieres to discuss and learn from and share with all of us. I thank you for being here because it's one of the aspects of independent YouTube journalism that I think our mainstream media counterparts and their pundits don't understand. On YouTube, you don't have an audience. You have a community. You have people who participate and people who expect you to do more than pose for the camera. They expect you to be active, respond, and be responsive beyond the confines of the story. And that is what's so special about what I do. And seriously, it's not just about me. It's all of us. And I will say more about that later. But finally, one critical part of that community has finally decided to join us. Stephen, so kind of you to go out of your way to be here. We certainly appreciate it.
Taya, thank you so much. I was just wondering, did you like my song? I mean, do you think... I thought it was pretty good, and I think maybe you have a new... I love the...
Maybe you could save that for later, and we could discuss it.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Maybe
Well, you did call
later.
me Keith Richards, and I was pretty pumped up about that.
That is not what I meant.
Oh, okay, it wasn't
That's
a compliment.
not what I meant.
Okay, well, that's fine. All right, I'm willing to accept that. But thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be with this community and all these special people. And what a lineup. That's an incredible lineup.
I know. I'm so proud of the guests we have.
Cop Watcher All-Star Hall of Fame, whatever you want to call it.
I completely agree.
I am totally pumped to hear what these people have to say about policing in America.
Well, Stephen, before you arrived, we were talking about community, and one person who was part of this very interesting community is Colorado Cop Watcher Eric Brandt. And Eric is what one could fairly characterize as colorful.
Absolutely.
He has filed and won multiple lawsuits against various police departments, which has led to, among other things, First Amendment training and body cameras for those same departments. And he was also part of a landmark civil rights lawsuit that established the right to record police in the 10th Federal Circuit. But Eric has also faced legal challenges. He pled guilty to threatening 3 federal judges and was sentenced to 12 years in prison in 2021. Now, lately, due to his good behavior, Eric was set up to be transferred to a halfway house, literally his last stop on his way to freedom. But then law enforcement struck back. And for more on the rest of the story, I will turn to Stephen, who's been looking into breaking developments regarding Eric. Stephen, can you share some of what you've learned with us?
Yeah, just recently, over the summer, it's interesting, a federal grand jury in Louisiana, in the Southern District of Louisiana, indicted Eric on account of harassment, interstate harassment, in other words, calling and harassing a law enforcement officer from Colorado to Louisiana. What was really, I think, questionable about this entire ordeal is the fact that he was indicted when he was pretty much ready to be released from his current situation in Colorado, where he was going to be transferred to a halfway house. He'd already been put in a minimum security prison, and this indictment occurred over the summer, and then they just issued a writ of habeas corpus for it. They did not lay out what the charges were, like what particular incident. There is a video we found where James Freeman was being harassed in a park.
Yes.
When he had camped there with his children by a park ranger, and Eric had called and supposedly, allegedly, and we will say allegedly at this point, made some threats. But it really is a questionable and I think curious timing because of he had been serving out a 12-year sentence for threatening 3 judges in Denver and had had such good behavior that he was on the precipice, I think, of having some freedom at that point. And so it seems that, and some of the people we spoke to, like Abity Liberty Freak, feels like this was time to keep Eric in prison because the incident date goes back to 2019, in the summer of 2019. So this case is almost 5 years old. So the question is, why is this happening? It happened. They charge him right within the statute of limitations. The charges themselves, there's one count. Can add another 5 years to Eric's sentence. So it really is a very difficult situation, and I think you're going to talk a little bit about what happened when he finally ended up in prison down in Louisiana.
Yes. And I just before I go on and share something from Eric, I wanted to say hello to Manuel Mata. He's a cop watcher that we're very fortunate to have with us. Manuel was going to turn himself in, but fortunately, they gave him time served, and maybe Manuel will be able to share a little bit more about what happened. We were very worried that he was going to be incarcerated for 180 days. So we want to welcome Manuel Mata.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome back, and also, of course, to say hi to HBO Matt out there. Good to see
HBO
you.
Matt.
Yeah, he's out there.
Is he driving somewhere, or is he?
He's, as you know, almost every time I've spoken to HBO Matt, he's been
every
in a car.
time you talk to that man, he's driving.
Seriously, he's driving.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I'm going to share something now. I think it's pretty obvious that in our prison-happy society, we often forget how much of a toll incarceration can take on someone. And this is particularly true for Eric, who, as I said, through good behavior had earned a degree of autonomy. And all of this was taken away when he was transferred to a state facility in Louisiana. So first, I want to read a letter from Eric describing the conditions in jail. So, and I want to thank you, Lacey R., for providing us this letter to share. In one word, this is horrid. I'm in my place now. It's awful. There are 76 bunks stacked close in a big open room, just like Auschwitz concentration camp. The toilets are open along the wall. No privacy. Showers the same. No curtain. No library. No books. No physical mail. It's all scanned to the kiosk computer. In fact, the Monroe address is the right one. They scan it there. No law library. I'm literally the only white guy on my pod. For the first time in my life, I was deloused. It was mandatory. I guess that's an issue here. They do not even provide underwear or socks. We have to buy them from the commissary. Can you believe that? Tablets suck, and cost is $1 per hour to use. Oh my God, Lacey, 6 months to 2 years. I am officially in hell. I might plead guilty just to get out of here. I'll call you in a bit. Love from the Gulag. Vladimir Putin would be proud. So that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounds terrible conditions. That's St. Tammany Parish Jail, I believe he was calling from.
Right.
I mean, writing from. Excuse me.
I think one of the things, we have this presumption of innocence, but when you're put in basically a torture chamber, the presumption of innocence just literally evaporates because, as Eric said in his own letter, he's like, I'm going to plead guilty. Just to get out of here. And I think that pretty much undermines the idea of justice, particularly in his case. And in many cases, he's not the only person who suffers this way in prison. And I think prison is probably an important component of undermining the idea of presumption of innocence and the fact that you can fight back against the system of justice. Because if you are incarcerated like that already in what sounds like kind of unbearable conditions.
Absolutely.
We see here why so many people plead guilty and don't really have the right to a trial. And the idea that you have a right to a trial is sort of ephemeral when you're sitting in jail like that. So,
and I think something that I think is beyond anecdotal evidence is that prosecutors often stack charges in the hopes that you will plead guilty. I mean, prosecutors do want to win cases. And I've heard, and this is somewhat anecdotal evidence, but that people get punished if they try to take it to trial. If they fight for their innocence, then they're doubly punished when it comes to sentencing if they dare do that.
This is my question, and this is, I think, an important question about this. Why 5 years later do they bring these charges? This is not a complicated case.
This was a 2019 incident.
Okay, so if you're investigating a murder or some sort of complex case with all sorts of trails of evidence, that's not the case with this. This was a single phone call, right? As far as we know. Now, we don't know all the details of the case. We don't know all
of them.
But from what we know, it was one or two phone calls and some kind of joking behavior by Eric, because there's that aspect of him. But, why 5 years? Why did it take 5 years to investigate a phone call?
Right.
And that's what raises really troubling questions about this because, Eric has spent a lot of time in prison. He has certainly, I think, done what everyone would want someone, who has to in some way make amends for his behavior if you judge it to be wrong. And, he obviously, there's a lot of discussion about that. But why 5 years later does Louisiana, does the federal system suddenly indict this man, drag him out of Colorado down there, and put him in, would be abject conditions?
Absolutely.
It does seem rather strange to me. It doesn't seem like a case that would have taken 5 years to bring to trial.
And from what I, in our conversations with Eric, because we've stayed in touch with him, I think he was working with some of the other inmates to create care packages at Thanksgiving for people. They were doing work for people outside of the prison. So he started a men's group. I mean, they were doing positive things.
Necessarily have an opinion on this, but
right.
I think Eric has served his time at this point. If you agree that Eric's behavior was wrong, he has served his time. To bring this up now, 5 years later, is to me very questionable.
Yes. And yes, Cajun Randy, he was in St. Tammany, and now he is in Plaquemines.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plaquemines.
So we were also speaking to Eric from jail, as we mentioned earlier, and we asked him if there was anything he wanted to say to everyone. So we're going to play that clip now. Remember, we had been on the phone with him for 15 minutes, so we only had a few moments left, but I said, is there anything you want to say to people? So maybe we can play that clip now. Eric, is there anything that you would want to say to the public right now that you could say?
I would say thank you for all the support, and I'm sorry. I know that everybody's invested a lot in me, and I was really hoping to make good on that investment here coming up, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit longer, and if they please just stick with me a little bit longer. I really appreciate the community support. It's meant a lot to me, and it's made me grow a lot as a person, and restored a lot of my mental and physical health, and I'll pay it back eventually. It just might be a little longer.
All right, we're going to make sure everybody hears that.
Thank you, Eric.
We're going to do a live stream with a bunch of cop watchers. We're going to make sure everybody hears that, Eric.
Your time is up.
So, Stephen, I think Eric is a perfect example of both the benefits and pitfalls of cop watching.
Yeah.
But he's also a unique character, too. Someone who had his own style. Someone one could say was unorthodox, but he was also kind of ingenious in the way he approached the process of YouTube activism. And that's another part of YouTube journalism that I have grown to understand and embrace. It is completely creative.
Absolutely.
We make the rules, so to speak. And I understand this from my own experience. And Stephen, I know when we were developing the show, it was both an organic process, but also collaborative. We took so many suggestions and ideas from you, folks out there, like you, Noli D, and translated them into reality. I think, Stephen, it was almost like inventing a new form of journalism. And I mean, not to give ourselves too much credit, but
here's the thing. This is very important to remember. We talk a lot about David Graeber, the noted anthropologist.
Yes. And
he always said that, a bureaucracy of violence causes a dead zone of imagination. So how do you respond to that in journalism? With journalism, you have to be creative, right? And that means that you have to kind of turn on the creative juices to make it work. You can't hold police accountable, right, through the normal standard practices of journalism. When we were creating the Police Accountability Report, we had to kind of turn everything on its head and say, look, we can't approach this. We're talking about a huge, massive, indifferent bureaucracy that really, in places where it takes root, like places like our own city, we see how it affects the psychology of the community. And in that case, we had to respond in kind. We had to be where we create this so-called dead zone, as David Graeber said, we had to create a zone of creativity where we take a show and formulate it, right? And say, we're not going to do the traditional journalism. I'm going to stand outside like a real, well, what am I going to say? I'm going to stand outside a lot, and I'm going to develop a persona around that. You're going to have your rants where you provide context, but also emotion, because this is emotional for people. A lot of people love Eric, and it's not like just a simple thing like we're just reporting. We are engaged to the point where we feel the emotion, people. And I think one of my favorite things about the show is your rant at the end, which you will be doing today, which you have a great one coming up.
Thank you.
Which no other person ever in journalists can do the way you do it. But you connect to the emotions of this problem, I mean, the people that we talk to, like Eric, their lives are turned upside down. And let's remember that Eric started his protests against the mistreatment of homeless people in Denver.
Yes.
So I think we've responded in a way that I think we match. We want to be more creative than the people that are doing the bad deeds and the bad governance. Bad governance makes you less creative. Well, we're going to be more creative. And that's where this show came from, was like a fountain of creativity between me and you, and our audience, and Noli D, and Lacey R, and Tom and Laura, and people, all these people.
And all the people that we met along the way, Otto and Blind Justice and so many others.
It's a tradition in all movements of social justice to be to be more creative,
Yes.
and to think of ways and new ways to fight power that is entrenched and otherwise is anti-creative. I mean, there's nothing more anti-creative than policing in America, the way it's constituted. And, in many ways, it seems to respond to complex social problems with simplified forms of bureaucratic violence. Well, we responded to that, and that's where the Police Accountability Report came from, And,
I think that's actually a perfect segue, as I'm putting up some little comments up here.
Cool.
A perfect segue to start rolling out our guests. And
Please
I
do.
am so excited about this particular group because, as I said before, they are a collection of independent YouTube activists, cop watchers, First Amendment activists, or whatever you want to call those, who have simply made a difference. And not just a difference in my life or our show, but the people they have helped by telling their stories. Stephen, we often describe our show as the reverse cops.
yes.
And I'm sure you all know that that's the infamous Fox show that tells of American law enforcement's absolute fixation on the working class from the perspective of cops exclusively. And I would say we try to do the opposite. And I would say all our guests do the opposite. They center the victim, not turn people into victims like a show like Cops does. But let's get started with our first guest. And just one more housekeeping note. Our hope for our celebration of our 5th year, we're going to thank all of our patrons at the end, patrons past, present, and future. We're going to thank them all. And I hope you'll bear with me to hear me thank you personally at the end. Now, we are going to stick to 5 questions per guest to make sure that they're not trapped with us till 1 o'clock in the morning East Coast time. So we're going to start. I hope you're ready. And if you have questions, I will try to bring up one for the guest. I won't be able to bring up a question for every single person in the chat, but I'll at least try to get one for the guest. Okay, so first up is the most eclectic and idiosyncratic YouTuber out there who has used humor as a tool and absurdity as a trope. His name is Otto The Watchdog, and his battles with Royce, Texas Police Department are truly epic. Take a look at this confrontation with Royce, Texas Police.
I don't answer questions. What do you want me to do? I'm asking you a question. What do you want me to do? I want to leave right now. I want to leave right now. I want to walk away right now. I want to walk away. Can I leave?
Listen to what you're saying.
Tell me, can I leave? Can I leave? Can I leave? Am I being detained or am I free to go? I'm being detained.
You can't say cuss words.
I can't say words?
You can't say cuss words.
Can you provide me with a list of words that I'm not allowed to say in public, sir? No, I don't. Could you define it for me, sir?
The curse word, disorderly conduct.
What curse word was I using that I'm not allowed to use?
I'm not going to start. But when we first contacted you, you were so aggravated at us, you didn't give us a chance to talk.
I can't imagine why anybody would be aggravated at 2 fine, upstanding gentlemen like you.
Exactly. See, stop doing the middle finger. Can't do that. Obscene language. That's part of the custom.
Is that a curse word?
No, but you forgot to put the video camera. Like we recorded if you
Uh-huh.
middle finger.
Uh-huh.
Obscene language.
Like this one?
Yeah, you can't.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not going to lie.
That is
It's
one
a
of my
good-
favorite
It's
clips
a
of
good
a
thing
cop
we're
watcher.
muted because I laugh every single time I watch that clip. I'm sorry.
It's understandable.
Seriously, when he starts kowtowing to the police, it's just that one police officer literally looks like he doesn't know what to do, and he kind of like wanders away from Otto.
The thing about that clip to me that's really interesting is Otto is really sort of laying out the absurdity of police control over our space, over sort of how they try to police our geography, and he's just showing them how literally absurd they are. And the funny thing is the way they react to it. They don't know how to handle it. They don't understand what's being communicated. But I don't want to go into that. I could talk about this for hours. Let's get to Otto.
Right. So one of the reasons why we're having him go first is that he also happens to be a good friend of Eric Brandt. So we wanted to welcome Otto. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
It's great to see you. Now, I'm sorry to start on a somewhat sad note, but first we'd like to know your thoughts on Eric's recent charges and whether or not the timing concerns you.
Oh, the timing, yeah, that's concerning. I think, like you said, the original phone call was like 2019, and here we are just now getting the charges. So they can file a charge and then just sit on it. So the statute of limitations doesn't. Once they file it, the statute of limitations stops, and then they
Right.
can bring it up pretty much whenever they want to. And yeah, he was like about to go in for a parole hearing, and this guy is basically the mayor of the jail at this point.
Wow.
So he had a really good chance of getting out. He was already in the process of relinquishing his authority within the administration of, the inmate administration of the jail that he was in. So that's pretty disheartening, and it should be terrifying to everybody.
Yeah. Otto, I was wondering, I mean, Eric is resilient. I mean, we all know that. He's like one of the most resilient people I've ever met. But how do you think this is affecting him? Like, what are you worried about him at all? I'm just wondering.
Well, Eric is he's a tough guy, and he's been through a lot of stuff just like everybody else has, but everyone does have a breaking point. And, if you don't believe that you have one, most people will get a speeding ticket, and they will go and they're like, oh, I'm going to fight it. And then they find out that their court case was rescheduled, and they end up just paying the ticket because it's too much of an inconvenience at that point. Okay. So if you're willing to give up something that is wrong over a ticket, a small thing like that, eventually you will get beaten down. And that's pretty much the goal. It's not a bug of the system. It is, in fact, the goal of the system. That's the whole point.
Someone in the chat asked about you, whether or not some of the cases that you had were resolved, and if things have been resolved in relation to, some of the difficulties the police had caused for you and your family. So maybe you could just give us an update on the status of your lawsuits against the police who continue to pursue cases against you. Can you let us know if they've been dropped? Just give us an update.
Yeah, so if you were following my story, I was arrested a lot.
Yes.
And I had a lot of charges. And for somebody who was arrested a lot and had a lot of charges, I have no convictions. Everything was dismissed. Of course, there's always threats of imprisonment and, plea deals and all of this and that. And, like Eric said, he's thinking about pleading guilty just to make it stop, right? Well, that actually doesn't work. You think it does, and then they slam you with something else, and that's after they can do enough things to you that you'll want to plead guilty, and the hardest thing for an innocent person to do is to not take an easy way out and make a plea, because they will make it sweet, But I have no convictions, and all the lawsuits that I filed were successful, and we have settled out of court on all of my lawsuits against Rockwall specifically. Some of my cases, the officers were entitled to qualified immunity, which we absolutely should overturn, because you and I would not be entitled to not knowing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that was in the Fifth Circuit, right? And that they're pretty sort of pro-police. Well, let me ask you a question, because what do you think the status of cop watching is now? Because you had to go through a lot of arrests, and then you kind of turned to cop watching as a way to put it back on them. But where does that leave cop watching? I mean, we've reported on a lot of places where they are trying different types of, arresting for ridiculous things like Corners News, arresting for organized crime. What do you think, where does cop watching stand now in terms of like what police are doing to fight against it?
Oh, they're absolutely. So they're passing a lot of laws, trying to make cop watching, active cop watching, following traffic stops, as dangerous as possible without making it illegal. So now they're putting distance requirements and things of that sort. So some of them are 10 feet as a guide, and some of them are 10 feet as a rule. And now Florida, I hear it wants 25 feet. Nobody's carrying around a tape measure. It's all kind of subjective, right? And then it's, hey, fight it in court. And as we go back to my previous statement about getting a $100 ticket, then it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to plead guilty to it because it's easy enough to get get out of this endless torment, So they're trying.
That subjective
honestly,
part really scares me.
Everything's subjective, Stephen. Everything's subjective.
True.
If you've watched even 5 minutes of any one of these people that you're gonna have on your show today's channel, you will know that you can be the most dangerous thing that the police can find in your car is that you're innocent. That's guaranteeing that you're gonna get a ticket. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
You're
That
going
is
to
quite
jail, buddy.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Very well
Taya,
said.
you
You know what? I have a question for you, but first I just have to shout out. We've got some great cop watchers down here showing some love and support for the other cop watchers. Guess
Okay.
who's down there?
Who?
Monkey 83.
Oh,
Monkey 83.
All right.
Somebody down there, I think they said Massachusetts is not the same without you. I think we might even have Joe Cool down there.
Joe Cool is legendary.
Legend. So, just shouting out some of the great people down there.
great
And I think
people.
I saw Lady Liberty Press as well. So just wanted to make sure
awesome.
to say hello to you kind folks. So, you see some cop watchers in there. You might want to find out more about what they do in the live chat. You might want to go follow them and click on their channel after we're done.
Well,
but before I go any further about some of the wonderful things in the chat, Otto, I have to ask you a question that may seem kind of serious, but I was kind of wondering, after all you've been through fighting back against police, and it's really, they were nuisance charges, but they made your life miserable, making you drive all the way across country to go to court, and just putting all the stress in your life and the cost of money. So I'm just asking, was it worth it? Was this fight to hold police accountable worth
Great
it?
question.
Oh, that's a loaded question. Was it
Sorry.
was it worth it? Was it worth
Yeah.
it to me personally as an individual? No,
Okay.
absolutely not. I would not recommend anybody to go through that intentionally on purpose for yourself.
Yeah.
But it was I do think, and as ridiculous as this might sound, I do think it was worth it for you. And for my kids, eventually one day, I think it'll be worth it to them. We don't lose our freedoms in one fell swoop. We lose them in tiny little increments. Apparently we're losing them about 10 feet at a time, and Florida just made it 15. So eventually it will be 50, and then it will be 100, and then it'll be audio recordings are not allowed. And,
Right.
they're going to continue to put restrictions on it. And I know that not because I'm Nostradamus or have a special book or a magic 8-ball, because that's what they do with every single thing else. We're going to limit just a little bit. And then before you know it, you can literally, no shit, you can go to federal prison for the rest of your life over some things you bought on Amazon. Well,
That's
very
incredible.
some things you buy on Amazon,
Otto, was
Incredible.
Nostradamus, was he a cop watcher?
16th century
Yes.
cop watcher.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, I mean, he
I just wasn't sure.
He rubbed the government wrong, and
That's a good point.
That's a common theme.
I
That's
think
really
Nostradamus would have made a hell of a cop watcher. Just saying. That's it.
But Otto.
Well,
go
generally,
ahead.
actually, we are kind of lucky to be able to do what we're doing.
True.
With as much as we've gone through individually and as a group, we are kind of lucky that at least we're not actively being shot every day on the street. But a lot of men did get shot in the street so that we could do this. And if we don't continue to stand up and push back against the encroachments, then we're not going to have the ability at all.
I think that's a great.
Otto, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And like you, I would never suggest to someone that they put their freedom on the line like that, especially if they have family that they're concerned about. But I understand how important it is to stand up for your rights. And there's a certain point where if we don't make the individual decision to stand up, no one else is going to do it for us. So I'm really, it's amazing that you led by example in that way.
Let me say this, Otto, we appreciate and we are grateful that we've been able to cover you and
Yes.
allow us to tell your story. So we want to thank you for that.
We do.
Because that is a wonderful thing that you've been willing to share all of this so people can understand what's at stake and why it's important. And
Yes.
without your story and other people's stories, we would not be able to tell that story. So I just want to say thank you as a reporter.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So
Hey, I want to say thank you guys for everything you do. You know,
Well, thank you.
for telling the stories, because if nobody tells the stories, then there was no story to have. You know.
They're very true. And I think finally some of the folks in the mainstream media have realized that cop watchers exist.
Yeah.
So that's a nice change of pace. We were a little ahead of the curve, maybe by 5 years.
5 years.
About 5 years,
that's
we were a little ahead of the
That's
curve.
why we're here. That's what we're here for.
For sure.
We're here to tell
And
stories like Otto.
in the grand scheme of things, cop watchers won because now everybody. The first thing that happens is everybody pulls out their phone.
Very true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We won.
Absolutely.
Without fear.
Beautiful.
Without fear, right? Everybody knows. Everybody knows their IDs now. You know, I have to show you my ID. Everybody knows to record their traffic stops.
Yes.
Everybody knows what to do with it, and the cops do too, right? We're gonna record that shit and put it on TikTok or YouTube.
Beautiful.
Well
And what
said.
a perfect and inspiring way to end your segment, Otto. I wish we could keep you on this whole time, but we have some other awesome people waiting in the wings. So I just want to thank you for joining
Thank
us
you, Otto.
for our 5th year anniversary. And just, we appreciate you so much, Otto.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
have a good one.
You
Take
too.
care. You know what? That was Otto. Fascinating and really insightful,
Yeah,
as always.
He's a
Now,
great guest.
our next guest truly needs no introduction. As I said before, he has built one of the largest cop watcher channels reporting on police abuse across the country, and he has done it with his own distinct style and voice, and his videos get millions of views. You might recognize him. Take a look.
As a matter of fact, pull up past that vehicle right there.
Sure.
Welcome back to the LackLuster channel. In April of 2024, a viewer named Brian was driving through DeSoto County when he approached a random ID checkpoint being conducted by the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. As he reached the front of the line, Officer Purnell, E22, approaches, and as advised by countless attorneys across this platform, Brian rolls down his window a few inches to allow for communication and the random check of his personal documents.
If you don't mind, can you roll the windows down for me?
No, I'm good.
If you don't mind, can you roll the windows down for me, sir?
I can hear you.
Sir.
I can hear you.
While it is typically considered a lawful order to roll down your window enough to at least communicate with the officer and to provide the demanded documents, there is no law requiring you to roll down your window completely. However, we often see that refusing to comply with this arbitrary command can lead to retaliation. Officers have repeatedly escalated encounters like this by ordering drivers out of their vehicles, writing unrelated citations,
Seatbelt, hand cover.
and charging drivers with obstruction.
Roll down your window, please.
Sir, it's raining.
I'm standing out here in the rain.
Okay.
I'm not melting. I'm fine. Could you roll down your window?
So, without further ado, we would like to welcome LackLuster to the channel. LackLuster, thank you for
Hey,
joining us. Should we call you Dale or should we call you LackLuster? How should we?
Either way is fine.
Either way is fine.
Wait, I just had to ask you, did you sample that body camera sound? The
The
juju?
Yeah, it's probably one of the worst samples I could have picked up.
That is brilliant.
I know, Stephen loved
as
that.
As someone who's watched a lot of body camera footage, when I heard it, I was like, I know that sound. That sound. I wonder,
like every commercial has a little jingle or something like beep at the end. So I figured the body cam was pretty distinct.
That is brilliant. Is that meant to tell cops that they're on camera? Like, is it to remind them, or what? Why is it? Why does body camera have that? I don't even know.
Yeah, as far as I know, I'm not 100% sure. But as far as I know, yes, it's just a reminder in case they forget to leave it on, turn it on.
I was going to say something a little saucy, but I'll keep that to myself. So first, I'm just curious from your perspective, are police changing their behavior, or are you getting just as many calls for help as before? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult. We see, I've personally seen a large shift in the behavior of various law enforcement agencies across the country. I've had insurance companies that represent those companies reach out to me for tips on how to keep their guys out of the litigation. Things like that are happening, but it's one of those occupations where there's a high rate of attrition. So people are always coming in, getting kicked out, or just bouncing around to different different departments. So I think we're always going to see new people that don't understand what's really happening out there. And unfortunately, most of these new guys are 20-year-olds, and no offense to any of the audience out there that's still very young, but when you're 20, there's you don't know shit. Excuse me, but
Good point.
And then you have all this responsibility and power, and that corrupts the best of us. And
absolutely,
I know I certainly wasn't at my best in my 20s. So,
it's
neither was I, to be
I
frank.
kind of wonder, like, if you're driving, you get pulled over, and you say, well, if you do something wrong, you're going to be on LackLuster channel.
Yeah.
Do you think like cops are like aware of it now, where they're like, oh God, I don't want to end up on LackLuster channel? I mean, because you've gotten so big. Do you think there's like behavioral adjustments going on out in the field because of what you're doing?
I know. I hope there are.
I think so.
There's a couple of videos on the channel where people have made mention of the channel, like, hey, this is going to end up on LackLuster. So that's always fun for me, of course. But I don't know if it's going to affect any. It might even make them worse, like might make them perform for the camera, if you will.
Well, I used to say people would shout world star before they do a video. Now,
that's right.
If a cop comes up, I'm just going to shout LackLuster. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We also see too. I've never asked my audience to do anything with their time. Well, maybe to speak their mind or something like that, but never anything specific. Never any direction on where to go with where to speak their mind. But I do post Facebook links in the description of my videos and Twitter sometimes if they have it, and I'll see often in those comment sections they'll say like, you got lackluster, because they're just
that's excellent.
That's cool.
That's so excellent. Something I wanted to ask you about that I saw is this project that you seem to be working on. I think it's with Long Island Audits. It seems like you're trying to give people a way to literally have a lawyer in their pocket. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Attorney Shield, it's up, it's running, it's on iOS and Android.
That's great.
We kind of did like a little soft rollout because apps are extremely difficult to build, and we're not using any APIs at all. We built all the software. I mean, I had nothing to do with building a software. I don't know how to do any of that, but but we're making everything our own, so that when we need to do something, nobody can shut us down. First off, that's number one. No, Amazon can't shut us down, or whoever else.
Excellent.
Nobody can shut us down. And anytime we want to build, we know the code inside and out. So that's great. But with that, that makes it a lot harder to build. So we did kind of like a quiet soft launch. So the people watching right now obviously will know that it's actually up and running. But we're waiting, and we've had a few interactions. Some have gone very well, some have not. So it's and not like they've gone bad for the person because they're using the app or anything. But we're working with some of them. Most of them want to remain anonymous because most people don't want to be on the internet. But hopefully we'll be able to share some of those interactions pretty soon and show you guys how the app works, because it's pretty awesome if you ask me.
Oh, you know what? I just have one more question before I know you want to jump in, but I have one more question for you, Dale. So this is something that we discussed prior to the show, but you were telling me that people are already using AI to duplicate your work. Can you just talk a little bit about that and what you're doing to fight back? Because there's so many different ways that AI is going to be affecting the future of people who are trying to put out content, whether you're a cop watcher or any other type of content creator. But I think it's especially dangerous for cop watcher. And one of the things I've noticed is that there have been some body camera channels that have popped up. And I would say, I'll say allegedly, or one could say that they look like they are fed directly by police departments as a form of propaganda to kind of counter the narrative that we're seeing when people actually hold their cell phones up and have real life encounters with police. So It does seem like they might be somewhat cherry picking these encounters. So I just want to know what how you're handling AI, how it makes you feel, what you're trying to do to fight back, anything along those lines.
Sure. Well, the biggest push I've seen so far, it isn't necessarily AI all the way. I'm seeing a big push from foreign countries blasting out YouTube channels with police interactions. And a lot of times they're just taking my video, my script, they're transcribing my script and running it through an AI voice and then running basically somebody else's voice over my editing and blurring out my logos. Incredible. So that's all over the internet. And there's like very little I can do about it. I can copyright strike it, but I'm still a one-man team. I have no employees. I need an editor, but it would be a full-time job to try to track down all the people doing this. But my biggest concern with it isn't really like for me or the channel, because the channel is going to be fine. My biggest concern is that the channels that are doing this aren't even from the United States, so they really have no stake in the game. They don't care what happens to the victims. They don't care what happens with the police forces. I mean, maybe they might in some like relative way or something, but like because they're not living in America, they don't care. It doesn't affect them. They're there for money. It's a pure grift, 100%, and that's kind of bothersome because I think my work has terminated, suspended dozens and dozens of cops. We've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars through GoFundMe's for victims, things like that, and that's something you'll never see from the foreign agencies making these videos. So I don't know, it's interesting.
Speaking of that, and that is absolutely terrifying and distressing. That foreign countries are using this to like some sort of entertainment fodder to get YouTube revenue, basically. I'm assuming, but where do you see cop watching now as sort of as a practice, an art form, whatever? Where do you see it headed at this point? And what's happening to it? Where do you see it now?
I don't know. It could be very interesting. We got Trump talking about pushing more qualified immunity and getting rid of. I think he said something about about people filming the cops recently, and I can't recall it.
Oh no!
Well, really? He specifically? Wow.
Yeah, I know he said something about qualified immunity and making it like increasing it, but
that's true. Yeah. That's true.
I think it'll be very interesting. We live in unprecedented times. This is truly an amazing period that we get to live through, and I don't know. AI could ruin everything we've worked for, or it could make it 10 times better depending on who's working on it and we're working on it. So it'll be very interesting to see.
I mean, it's a weird thing to think about because 10 years ago you probably couldn't have done what you've done and had the impact and the influence that you had.
No,
and that's been a benefit of algorithms and technology. But then on the other hand, AI is a really sort of treacherous path there, and it might not be the same thing. It's weird to think about in that sense.
Actually, I've been spending like every other night working on this piece that I've been writing about my experience at this journalism conference when they said, oh, why don't you try all these wonderful AI tools? And so I'm looking at these AI tools and I'm like, well, some of them are interesting, but some of the ones that I was being given for free, I was like, wait a second, they just want to learn how my brain works. They just want to learn what I know so that they can replace me. So that a newsroom that would normally have 100 people in it, now are only going to have 15 miserable souls running around in circles, prompting the AI and trying to find out whether or not the latest social media video is a deep fake or not. And it's just going to be like a hamster wheel nightmare. So my concern isn't that AI couldn't be used for good and couldn't be used to benefit creators. But if I know anything about the current system that we're in, those with immense wealth these technocrats are going to grab a hold of it, and they're going to use it to extract even more wealth from us, even more wealth from our society. These technocrats already ignore legal norms. They already exploit exploit the working class, and it's actually going to diminish the power that we have as laborers to come together. Like, I'm actually a union steward. So if you eliminate all the laborers, then we don't have any power against these folks, against these corporations. And so what I've noticed is what they're most likely going to do is use it to replace human beings and to make labor as cheap as possible. And there's just going to be a wide swath of people that are losing their jobs all over the place, because what I've noticed with AI is that it's replacing the things we love to do. Steven loves making music. No comment on his music, but he loves make. It was a great song.
Thank you.
He loves making music.
It yet.
You know, he loves writing. I like writing. We like making videos. I love doing voiceover work. I love doing narration. That's all stuff that's being replaced by AI. Art. People who do art, hand drawing things, come up with cool styles. That stuff, the computers are doing all the stuff we actually like doing. Even actors, the people who are, doing the behind the, they're the ones in the background. People who spend like 20 years like playing zombies in the background of the movie because they love
worried about
doing
zombies
it.
now?
I'm worried about the zombie actors,
okay, well, ask
Steven.
him a question.
So I think I started ranting.
Yeah, I think this is not the rant part. This is the part where you ask our guests questions so they can,
No, it's all.
I'm sorry. The question is, Dale, do you see a horrifying dystopian future where we're all going to have to ask the government?
That's a very loaded question. That is not an objective question.
No, absolutely. I don't know if you guys watch what NVIDIA puts out. They make all the microchips and GPUs and all that fun stuff. But, technology advances, what is it? They used to say, anyway, 1,000 times per year. And now he's saying, the CEO of NVIDIA, he's saying with whatever they just created, that it's going to be more like 1 million times per year.
Yeah,
Lord.
Moore's law used to be the capacity
that's right.
of a chip would double every 2 years. And now, it's more can you be more exponential? I think it is more exponential,
It's absolutely horrifying. Can I say one last thing about AI?
No.
Please?
Yes.
Pretty please?
Yeah, that's Dale. He's your guest.
Dale,
is he gonna...
May I say one last thing about AI, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what I'm concerned about is my one hope was that this AI was going to be self-limiting, because at a certain point, there's just not going to be enough energy and not enough storage for all this AI to work. And that's why it worries me that former CEO or current CEO Sam Altman is walking around hat in hand to all these petrol companies to make sure that there's going to be an endless supply of energy for AI. So the one hope that it might be self-limiting, he is absolutely trying to destroy, despite the fact that he had gone on record saying, gee, I'm kind of worried, what we might have unleashed out of Pandora's box. And then he goes around and he's like, let's make sure it can never be turned off. So he's trying to build Skynet, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and we talked about this with my editor. Dale, do you think RoboCop is the next step on policing? Or one day we're going to get pulled over by a robot and you're going to have to turn your channel into a RoboCop channel, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. LAPD's already working on some robot that deploys from a police cruiser and comes to your window and then connects through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever. And then so you don't even go face to face with a human anymore. You'll be like a little R2D2 thing at a screen. And it's supposed to be a human on the other side, but oh
my God,
how long that lasts.
And I think in New York they were getting the robot AI dogs, and then they had something that looked like a little trash can.
Right.
But
Dale, thank you.
Dale, I have been given the signal that I definitely should let some of our other guests come on, and I need to stop talking about AI. Apparently,
sorry to the production team. I was clicking buttons. I didn't know what some of them did, and I think
you kind of popped up Batusai for it's all good. We were happy to see him.
Yeah. But Dale, thank you so much, and congratulations on all your amazing work. And
we love it.
The success of your channel, it's inspiring, to say the least.
Absolutely. Thank you for what you do to help educate people, because you do a terrific job adding, what the law to it. A lot of people, myself included, don't realize the legalities, some of the finer points of these police stops. Yeah. So you're really helping educated people, me included. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it.
All right. You take care. Wow. I'm so glad we got to talk to him. And we're about to have someone very special coming up. Mm-hmm. We're about to be joined by a true original, a man whose blend of satire, critique, and sometimes even absurd antics makes him an impossible act to imitate. Take a look.
It says sheriff. I don't know what county, though. Criminal interdiction unit. State of Texas Sheriff's Office. It's like license plate readers. Hey, what's up? Yeah, how about you? What department are you with?
I work for Collin County Sheriff's Office.
Collin County?
Yes, sir.
You got ID on you?
I sure do.
Can I see it, please?
You want to see my...
Yeah, please. I need to see your ID.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Sure, no problem.
You licensed to carry that firearm?
Sure am.
Okay. Can you do me a favor and, sorry, hold on. That's kind of loud. That's drowning it. Can you do me a favor while I'm dealing with you? Can we go ahead and put your firearm up for my safety?
Absolutely.
This man is a committed independent journalist who's recently focused on the courts to expand his efforts to hold police accountable. I'm, of course, talking about the man, the myth, the legend, James Freeman. James, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, James.
Oh, I had it muted. Sorry. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Those are such fascinating videos you do because it exposes the absurdity of how police control space. Every time I watch them, I learn something new about them. I love it. Just because when you juxtapose those roles, it reveals how those roles really operate on us in ways psychologically we don't think about. So every time I watch them, I'm like, wow, this is really like, this should be. I once wrote a book about 20th century theory of police power, and James has actually explained it in a better way than reading a 200-page book. So I just should have watched your videos instead of reading certain things. But so it's pretty phenomenal.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And James, first, to start off on something a little less fun first, I wanted to get your reaction to Eric's latest indictment. I know you know him well, you're friends, so we just, if you don't mind sharing with us what your reaction is.
It's sad, it's disappointing, and honestly, I still continue to get shocked by these people. I continually say, I think I've seen everything. And this is what we can expect from them, though. They're terrorists. And that's what they do, is they terrorize people. And especially people like Eric Brandt, he is still a very strong voice. Whether he's outside of the cage or inside of the cage, like you guys talked about, he's been very successful at continuing to help other people while he's in. And Eric has never been a threat to anybody. And the reason that he's in jail is because he allegedly made threats of violence. Eric isn't dangerous because he would violently attack someone. Eric is dangerous to the government because he tells the truth and he shows the truth.
Well said.
And there's nothing more dangerous than that to them.
You make a really good point because allegedly Eric was in Colorado when he's making these threats. But again, I want to ask this question again, because this is a very important question. Does the timing of this indictment raise any questions for you?
It looks like they had it planned all along. He was about to get out and they knew it. And that's, again, this is sadistic. This is, plotted out. I guess we would call it premeditated even, and it's, I don't see it as shock. They continue to shock me, actually.
Wow.
But no, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think they had it all planned out and said, you know what, let's get him to where he's got a glimpse of hope. And then let's crush him.
That's really...
Absolutely. And first, let me just say thank you to some of the new subscribers we see here and some of the great live chat donations. We really appreciate those super chats.
Absolutely.
And also, hi to Matter of Rights, who's one of my Patreons. We appreciate our Patreon. So hi, Matter of Rights. Okay, I had to make sure to do that.
Okay.
So I have another question. I'm multitasking.
Okay, fair enough.
So I had another question about Eric's style. So some people feel that Eric's style, just as, when doing his protests, some people would say they were performance art. Some people would say they're very creative. Other people would say it's overly aggressive, loud, intrusive. How would you characterize it, and how would you defend it if you would choose to defend it?
Oh, that's an excellent question. because early on when I had started my channel, there were lots of people who commented both on my channel and on Eric's and said James would never work with Eric because of the way he acts. And so I made a special point to go out of my way to travel to work with Eric, and told people, look, just because I don't do things the exact way somebody else does, we need all different types. And what Eric is doing is very important. And to be quite frank, I don't want to do it. And so I'm glad he was. And he mentioned to me when I went out there, he said, I've done activism for so many years, and I never got any attention on anything that I was doing until I started using that 4-letter word that starts with F. And all of a sudden, everybody's paying attention to my stuff. So, I mean, he was effective at doing what he wanted to do.
Well said.
I mean, it's so fascinating because, we interviewed him about that, and he was talking about how many years he tried to kind of break through the noise.
Yes.
And then once he did, it was just, it's a fascinating tale because, really, he was calling attention to a grave injustice that homeless people were being abused, that the criminal justice system, that judges, had serious problems and conflicts of interest, and no one paid attention. And then when he finally got people to pay attention, suddenly they start indicting him. And I will say that, what he said in some cases was offensive to me, but there are people that make threats like that all the time. And it's not uncommon. It seems like, I think there's a lot to what you say. Could you expand on that? Because really, was it the threats or the threat of Eric's truth that was the problem?
Oh,
I really don't even think that what he said was a threat. And I even articulated to people I was quite disgusted by it too, but I don't believe it was a threat. His wording specifically, I don't think.
Thoughts and prayers. And prayers.
And if you know, and if you know him, he's atheist. So prayers to who?
Well, look, it's really fascinating. Just let me, because he would say thoughts and prayers. So in a way, because Eric's kind of uncannily brilliant on things. Because look, we're doing a documentary, a very long form piece.
Yes.
So I've gotten to know him, and when he was doing, he's sort of commenting on that idea of thoughts and prayers, like when people get shot, and some of my thoughts and prayers. And I feel he's at the same time satirizing as he is criticizing. Right? Am I getting this right? You think?
I think you're right, and his genius is beyond what I think a lot of people comprehend. And I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, he is complex as they come, and there are many different ways to look at him. But sometimes when I sit down and I was listening to some of those, because I had listened to them reading the recording and thoughts and prayers, I'm like, well, Eric's also making a commentary within this that is quite brilliant in many ways because it's an empty phrase, right?
Absolutely.
It's an empty phrase for saying we're not going to solve a problem, but we're going to share our empty thoughts and prayers.
Absolutely.
And so Eric was couching in that, and I'm like, wow, you really got to be careful of making quick judgments about Eric's behavior or what he says, because there's always layers to it. And I'm sure that you found that out too, James. But let me just move on to one thing, because the courts, you have spent a lot of time holding courts accountable. Why is that important, and why do people ignore it at their peril?
I think the courts are far more out of control than the police. And when I first started my channel, that was where I actually put a good amount of attention. And then I realized that it was such an uphill battle that I was going to win absolutely nothing on, that I kind of stepped away from it. I don't think the people were ready for it, but I want cameras in every courtroom the way that cameras should be on every police interaction. And to be quite honest, I don't really care how it gets done. There are courts now, like the Ninth Circuit of Appeals, for example, has their own YouTube channel. They live stream almost all, if not all, of their hearings. These things are supposed to be public. They've always been supposed to be public. Back in the day, the whole point of a court recorder, the guy who sits there and writes or types what's going on, is because nothing that's going on in there is supposed to be a secret. It's all supposed to, and so basically, to me, they're just behind on the times. We have far more advanced technology than a freaking typewriter to document what's going on in the courts.
Are you sure?
Well said.
Than a freaking typewriter.
Right.
I like that.
Or like having a courtroom sketch artist. I mean, something that absolutely drives me crazy in our Maryland courts is that we can't record. I mean, it's terrible.
You know, it's a perfect example of that, James, is that you were broadcasting
that's right.
Eric's sentencing, and that judge went down some passive illogic that had just still astounded me to this day when I listened to that. And had you not done that, it would not be out there.
That's right.
Accessible to people to hear the audacity and the absurdity of his logic when it came to sentencing Eric, you know? So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was really important in particular because that Judge Hoffman, who also wrote a book called The Punisher's Brain.
That was just bizarre.
Who went into this entire speech about how there's 4 different types of justice. There's retributive justice and all this kind of rehabilitative justice. And then he says, and he's talking about it. He's talking about how he doesn't want to give retributive justice. And then he immediately gives vengeful, retributive justice. It was
on top
astonishing
of that,
to me.
The whole thing is on Zoom, and then he's like, "But don't publish it. Don't let anyone else hear it, even though it's already on freaking Zoom." Which, to your point, James, is the lack of the actual cognitive dissonance of the legal system and judges. Yeah, I'm on Zoom where anyone can join, but God forbid you put it on YouTube so the general public can hear it. That makes no sense. I mean.
I think what it is, too, is it comes down to controlling the narrative.
Yes.
I can publish it on my channel, but you can't publish it on yours. It's about controlling the narrative, I think.
It is so much about controlling the narrative. It is so much about self-justification. And I think Eric and James had brought up, we focus on police accountability, but my God, the judiciary operates... As you said, and you've already said this, so I'm repeating it, but I want to say with emphasis that, I've witnessed so many things in courtrooms that are far worse than a traffic stop. You know what I mean? I mean, I've seen judges put people in jail for absolutely nothing.
You've seen drunk judges on the bench.
I've seen drunk, all sorts of stuff. And it's shameful because judges are just so empowered and are so imperious when you're in court. And so I think, James, you're right, but it's a much harder branch of government to fight because they really have archaic methods, right? You can't have a camera in a courtroom. I've literally been almost arrested for opening my cell phone when I'm trying to report on a case.
Right.
And, the judge what are you doing with that cell phone? And the bailiff comes over and they're all... so pleased with themselves that they're controlling you to the point where you can't really, cover what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think I usually don't, actually, I really never like looking at government for a solution to a problem, but I think the problem, though, is that the legislature has essentially kind of granted the courts power to make their own rules in their courtroom, but it's gone too far. And so I think it's going to need to come down to the legislature writing something saying, no, these are some things that you can't restrict.
I agree.
And setting some boundaries. I mean, I thought that was the whole point of a system of checks and balances, that the different branches didn't work together, but quite literally worked against each other and said, wait a second, you're wrong. We're going to step in and kick you in the butt.
I mean, I agree because, usually administrative judge can set any, as you know, in your fight with New Mexico courts, the administrative judge has all this power to do all sorts of crazy stuff that without proper oversight or checks and balances can just get out of control. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. James, I had another question for you, and I know it's somewhat broad, but I wanted to know what you've learned about American policing over your years of covering it. From your viewpoint, your unique viewpoint, what stands out to you? What are the lessons James Freeman learned from covering police in the unique way that you have? I know it's a big, kind of a broad question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm trying to think. So I think that some of my best videos that have exposed to other people as well as myself how police really are is that it seems that once a man is told that he has power or authority over other men, that he just does things that are completely unnatural. Like that video that you showed for my intro of me walking up to this guy. I don't know who he is. I've never met him in my life. I've got no reason to interact with him at all. And if I do, as a normal human, I should just say, hey, hello, how you doing? Or, but to walk up to another man and just start demanding things and trying to take control over that person, it's sick. It's wrong. But these people have been told that they've got it in their head that they literally have a right. They have the authority to just arbitrarily control everyone around them. And the whole point of asking someone to disarm themselves or trying to disarm someone, it's all about gaining power, being the most powerful person in the room, and establishing that dominance over everybody the moment you walk in. And in doing it, honestly, it's a character that I play, but I've gone back after doing it going, that is sick. And I was even disturbed by the fact that this cop let me do it. Like, most of the people in the comments are like, man, this is the nicest cop ever. No human should tolerate that from another human. It's wrong.
That is profound. That is truly profound. And I think, because James, what you point out is we take police power for granted, and we pretty much have all been sort of indoctrinated into accepting the fact that an individual can walk up to us and say, stand over here,
absolutely,
tell me this, give me your ID, that kind of stuff. And I think, that's why your videos are so important and vital in many ways, because you really do bring that. There's not many people who have been able to sort of so starkly illustrate the effect of police power, and especially police overreach. So we appreciate you. And thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to make sure, James, is there? Do we have to go to our next guest?
We really do.
We do. James, I hate letting you go because I want to pick your brain, and especially, me, I really want to have like a follow-up conversation with you. When you say you don't like to look to government for solutions, I really want to have a follow-up conversation with you about that would be for alternative solutions. So we're going to have that conversation sometime.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
But we appreciate it. Thank you for coming on and celebrating our 5th anniversary with us.
We appreciate it.
Thank you guys, and congratulations. And thank you for everything you've done for this 5 years. I'm happy for you guys' anniversary. Thanks.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. Oh, that's great. It's always good to see him.
Absolutely.
Now, our next epic cop watcher, it's our guests are continuing one by one.
This is amazing that we've talked to. So we have still.
I know we have more to come.
More
legends to come, you guys.
It's amazing to me. It really is.
Now, this one, our guests, honestly, they really don't need an introduction. In a world where cop watching can sometimes become almost too over the top, the Batusai stands out for his measured and almost understated approach, but is one that sure gets results. Let's take a look.
Your last name?
Because you're
Turner.
Turner.
Oh, am I being detained right now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm being detained.
Yes, sir. You got to put this down.
Okay, so they're taking my. Okay, let me put it. I'll put it down. I'll put it down.
Turn it off.
I'll put it down.
And this. Because you're breaking city ordinance.
Okay.
Take that off.
Take it off. It's important. I don't want to touch it.
Take it off.
I thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate it. And I know you're always asked this question, but I just want to make sure for the people who might not be familiar with you, one of the reasons why you are so well respected in this community is because you have actually made case law to protect people's right to record, to actually protect people's First Amendment rights. And it was a decision that's known as Turner v. Driver. I believe a cop arrested you, I think, for maybe trying to film a police station. We know what the decision is, but can you just talk a little bit about it and how you've had to keep fighting to protect that right?
So this all started when I was actually in college. So I was in college, worked a part-time job, and I learned about my rights. They don't teach you this stuff in high school, of course. They don't want to teach you this in public systems. But I actually ended up learning this because the state of Texas made it mandatory that in order to get your degree, you needed to take U.S. government and Texas local state government. And over the summer, when I took those classes, I learned how to pretty much stand up for your rights, exercise those rights. And one book in particular really pushed me over the edge, and it was called Convicting the Innocents. I had to do a book report on that for my U.S. government class, and that really stood out to me. So I started digging on YouTube, and then that's when I kind of discovered the whole cop watching room. This is where I came across channels like TomZebra, Jeff Gray, Pennac News, like Sean Thomas. So see, these are some of the guys that's been doing it for a long time. So I've been watching and just like learning from these guys, and I decided that, you know what, I want to do this same cop watching activity in my city. And before I knew it, things just took off.
Well, one of the things we had talked about when we had you on the show before was that even though you got this ruling, police didn't really seem to abide by it. Is that my understanding, that they kind of created laws that kind of, didn't totally go to the heart or the letter of the decision that was made on, that you won? I mean, is that right in some way?
Not in Texas. Texas, I think they're being very careful here. They're saying you can record, but you got to do it from back over there. There's some things that you can do to kind of like, test the limits here. Most times they'll tell you to stand back, but I guarantee you, if you put the camera there and you take a step back, they'll be like, you can't leave your camera there. It's interfering. So, it's just those type of things that, you have to kind of think of on the fly, things to improvise the situation. So, for instance, even though Carnegie Driver has established the right to record police officers in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, I do believe that there are officers who are undermining that. They get away with things by shining the light in your camera, blocking your view by positioning themselves in front of your camera and the action that's going on, or playing copyrighted music to try to see if they can get your videos taken down so you can't monetize it.
Oh my God,
so there's
devious.
different steps that officers are doing, and if only they put this much effort into doing their job correctly, they wouldn't have to worry about the camera in the first place.
That's a really good point. I mean, and that does make me question though. Like for example, one thing I wanted to ask you is the Fifth Circuit has a reputation, which is Texas. Fifth Circuit has a reputation for being very pro cop. How did you even win that case? Like I've been meaning to ask you this question because I've had people who we've reported on. They say, well, they go to a lawyer and they say, well, you can't win in the Fifth Circuit, so I can't sue on your behalf. How did you actually win in the Fifth Circuit?
So this is what I try to tell a lot of people, and this is what kind of makes me a little successful, is because you got to study the game. It's unfortunately it's just all one big game, and once you learn how to play the game, you can use the rules against them, and that's pretty much how I kind of stepped into the scene. Because once you realize what to do and how to do it, there's a lot you can do, going forward to get things established and get things set right away. And one of my philosophy is give the officer the shovel, let them dig themselves a hole. Ask the right questions, record it. Right. And you never know how far that video is going to go. So I try to do it from a professional standpoint. But I love the different styles of cop watching out there. And I think there's a lot to learn from everyone. And that's what I enjoy watching a lot of people. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with the courts, you have to play the game, and then you have to beat them with their own rules. And that's something that I have to live with my life. Even before cop watching, it's just growing up. You got to learn how to play within the rules, and then use the rules to get your way. You know what I mean?
Batusai, I just wanted you to know there was this great comment that said that you could survive a bear attack cool as a cucumber. and Michael Willis, hi, Michael Willis, we appreciate you, said this guy is awesome. He's doing it the right way, to my taste, making case law in the process. You guys want change? This guy has the combination to unlock change. So just to let you know, you are very much appreciated, and the way that you have, fought for our right to record and our First Amendment rights is really appreciated. But to go towards what, Stephen was talking about in relation to the Fifth Circuit, even here in Maryland, attorneys have shared with me that it's very difficult to sue because the judges are so pro-cop. There are people I've spoken to across the country who can't even find a civil rights attorney who's even willing to help them sue because they know that they're just going to get slapped down by the judge, or the attorney is worried about alienating themselves from the larger judicial community. So, I mean, have you found this to be the case? Have you found it that, attorneys have said that it's difficult to sue, or that that judges are particularly pro-cop?
Yes, I remember this very well. Even when I first started recording, just trying to, I think I talked to at least maybe 10 to 15 attorneys to take my cases to begin with, and it was just an uphill battle. And most of the times, attorneys would not take my cases because there was no damages. There was nothing there to make money off of. And in fact, it was just more of, if I can't make a decent chunk of change out of this, then I'm not interested. It's not worth my time. So I've heard that from many attorneys. And then that's when I met Kervin Altaffer. And I met Kervin Altaffer through Brett Sanders. And when I spoke with Kervin Altaffer, we talked for about 2 hours the first time we met. And within those first 2 hours, we became really close. He took all my cases And I think after that, I believe TML started putting me on their radar because we were just suing, getting settlement checks. And then as soon as our case went to the Fifth Circuit, those settlement checks were used to fund turn-of-event drivers. So it wasn't just he's settling to get money. But keep in mind, when I was doing all this, I was in college part-time. You know, where am I going to get, $35K to fund an appeal? You know what I mean? So from my settlements, I used that to fund that. And even though the officers got qualified immunity, the overall battle was lost, but the war was won when we got turn-of-event driver, because a lot of people were able to use that case law to prove that it's been established so these officers don't get qualified immunity. So I think, yes, it's a win, but I think now you kind of have to position yourself as in, okay, now you get to the point to where judges are super pro-police, and that pretty much any ruling or any situation that gets presented in front of a judge, they're going to side with the police. Well, whenever you think about it, you have to think that you got to try to make the officer look bad, and you just look like an angel, just to put it in a nutshell. That's just how it's going to have to be. That's interesting. Unfortunately, it has to be like that in order to get any sort of movement in a court. Otherwise, even if you're on the same level as the cop, if the cop's being rude and you're being rude, we're going to side with the cop because he's a cop. Yes. But if the cop's being rude and you're just being as nice as a 76-year-old lady who just came from a Sunday night service in the church, they're probably going to side with the lady. But it's unfortunate that you have to go that far to that link just to kind of get any sort of movement with the courts.
This kind of makes you like a master of the cop watching universe, that you thought stylistically how your style would translate into a court setting, into a higher court setting, into an entire process. That's pretty freaking amazing to think that far ahead and say, hey, I have to look sympathetic if I'm going to win legal precedent. I'm impressed.
I mean, I have to ask. I mean, you're noted for your deliberate style, how you do not allow yourself to get ruffled, how you don't slip into profanity, because you're thinking long game. You're playing chess, you know? But are you still sticking with that formula? I have to wonder sometimes, don't you just want to get loud? Don't you just want to flip that bird?
You have, oh man, you have no idea. There's been so many times I have been tested, I have been pushed to my limits, but I just like, you know what? This is pretty much what they want. And I said, like, I can't do that. There's a bigger picture here at play, and I have to stick to that, to my convictions, and I have to keep pushing forward. And there was one thing that I do want to say, because this was part of the clip that you played with Corrigan, where they had the illegal signs posted on the side of the building. Well, we went to mediation for that. So during the mediation, we had a retired federal judge, and we can't really talk about what happened during the mediation process, but what happened afterwards was kind of something that really shocked me. Because as soon as we were leaving, the retired judge, she shook all of our hands. But then whenever she shook my hand, she's like, hang on, Mr. Turner. I read a lot about you. And I'm very impressed, and I'm very proud of you. And it's like there's a lot of, you have no idea how many people actually support some of the things you guys are doing. So that kind of was just like, you know, hit a light switch for me. It was like, yes, we are actually making a positive impact. And even though that there are judges that are pro-police, there are judges who are pro-Constitution.
Oh, that's so good to hear. That's an amazing so heartening.
Story. Wow.
That's a beautiful story. Yeah. That helps renew my hope. It really does.
Truthfully.
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle. And I don't know if you knew, but that Corrigan situation, I got them to sign the signs that they took down from the building. I got all the defendants to sign the back of it.
Oh, wait, you got the defendants to sign the back of it?
Yeah,
was that part of the?
Whoa,
yeah,
really?
It was part of the settlement. So
that was part of the settlement.
Yeah, so we told them to, you know, those signs that you had on the building. Can you take them down and have all the defendants sign it? And then they agreed to it, and we were surprised that they agreed to it. So I kind of got it up there on the back wall. I don't know if you can see it, but
that's diabolical. I love that for you.
Real quick, give me a second.
I love that for you. Yes, please let us see it.
I mean, the thing is amazing. Just talking to the Batusai and James Freeman and think of all the change that these individuals just working on their own, no newsrooms, no editors.
So this is the sign
Oh,
here.
there it
I don't
is.
know if
That's
you can
amazing.
See
That's incredible.
it. And they signed the back of it. So, like, it was no joke. And then
Oh, that's amazing.
And one thing I did find out later on, because I did some open records requests, I think whenever they wrote me the citation for the for filming, when they dismissed it 2 days later, TML, which is like the insurance for the city, required the officers to take constitutional law. So,
Wow.
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, so it was 2 days after, so they knew the lawsuit was coming.
Wow.
Which begs the question is why they hadn't done that before they became police officers, or
That's an
before they were
excellent point.
out in the
It was
streets.
it was probably more like just like a revisit.
Maybe a refresher course.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully,
It's always good to.
Except, Stephen,
brush up.
didn't you have a particular experience on what you saw? You knew that was written on in a police academy blackboard about.
Oh yeah,
the Fourth Amendment.
Doesn't apply to us. We got a picture from
Yes.
a group of cops called VSET, Violent Impact Crimes Division, and they were doing training, retraining on the amendments. You know, the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and they wrote on the blackboard, "Fourth Amendment does not apply to us." And of course, a lot of those guys
in the academy
just
on
to
the
show you how
blackboard for
important
them.
Batusai's work is, a lot of those officers end up being part of the Gun Trace Task Force, which was a group of 6, 7, 8 officers who robbed residents, stole overtime,
And dealt drugs
So
in our city.
congrats to you, because that's great to hear, because, you know, if we can, you know, at least teach police officers that their whole, you know, occupation relies upon the Constitution and those rights are important, that's a victory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think
And-
if people found the real reason why the police are here, I think everybody would blow their lids, and people are like, oh no, that's not true. But you know, police are here to serve their masters. That's pretty much all it is.
Yes.
They're
Speak the
there
truth.
to serve the wealthy and the people in position of power. That's their true purpose.
Yes.
So.
And we should not
Well
forget
said.
that.
And
Yeah.
we can never
No,
forget that.
It's an important thing to remember.
Absolutely.
Right.
They are the front line to protect the interest of capital. Corporatists, you know, those oligarchs who are corrupting our society and corrupting our government process. They're corrupting our democracy. Crony capitalism, I believe it's called. But
Go ahead. You say.
well, I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to ask, are there any new ongoing fights with the police departments, or is there anything that you want to share with us, like any new legal front that you're ready to share? I know sometimes you can't always share something that you're working on, and if you can't, I totally understand that. But is there anything
I'll
else
say
coming
it.
up?
So I had a couple of people respond to email me saying, hey, we didn't know you were the guy for Attorney v. Driver. And I was like, yeah, I guess it's been some time. I haven't been really active. And then I had a couple of people from Mata was actually one of them. He said, I think it's time for you to return to Fort Worth. And I said, why do you say that? And they said, oh, the Turner v. Driver case, they're pretty much saying that, oh, that means nothing. And yeah, that white guy is not going to come back here anymore. And I said, wait a minute, white guy? Oh, yeah, I didn't tell you. They think the guy from Turner v. Driver was white. And I was like, really? I was like, okay, yeah. I guess I already got a good disguise, so
I was going to say, you can be totally undercover now. They're going to
Right.
be looking for the wrong guy. That's some bad police work.
That's some very bad detective work. Absolutely.
That's pretty sloppy.
But we
Oh, that's
really
funny.
appreciate you coming on the show for our 5th anniversary.
I really
kind of you
wish
to
I
take the
could
time
keep
to join
you
us.
for longer, but I promised everyone I would do 5 questions to make sure that I don't trap our friends in the studio here all night.
Right.
But would you please agree to come back and spend some more time with us? Like, I think we just need to give the Batusai his whole hour.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
think that's what has to
Fascinating.
happen. You just need your own hour.
Oh, yeah.
Would you
I got
be
a lot
willing
of
to
fun
come
stories
back?
for you. Yeah, I'll
Yes.
come back, but I got a lot of fun stories for you guys.
All right.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to them. Thank you so much for joining us. And there is a lot of love in the chat for you, as I'm sure
Absolutely.
you'll see.
Thank
So
you for having me,
so
and
much.
happy anniversary.
Thank you, Batusai. We appreciate
Thank you so
it.
much. Oh, it's so great to see him.
Yeah. Yeah.
great
It's
guy.
amazing. You know, I was just saying, you think about all the changes that have been effectuated by the people that we've had in our show
Yes.
who had done this all on their own initiative.
Yes.
It gives you hope.
It really
It
does.
gives you hope in democracy.
It really
You know,
does.
because I know the internet is fueled by cynicism,
Mm-hmm.
but this is not a place for it. Because if there are individuals willing to go out there and risk their neck and get arrested, or
Yes.
just confront cops, or create videos, or tell people stories just on their own with no prompting, I can't be a cynic. all the time.
All the time.
All the time. This is nice. I feel it's pretty nice.
Feeling a little warm fuzzy.
It's a great gift for our 5th anniversary to really talk to people who have made a difference. You can make a difference.
Absolutely. Because I have to admit, when I first started working with Steven, and he was a bit cynical, and understandably, because he had been a lone voice.
I was cynical?
He was a lone voice pushing back against, police misconduct that he saw, violations of civil rights of community members, deaths that were being under investigated and literally covered up. He saw this. He listened to the community and reported on it, and he received retaliation from the police department. He had people from the medical examiner's office call to try to get him fired. As a matter of fact, they tried to get me fired too, which is sort of ironic because at the time we were doing a podcast that we weren't getting paid for. But just all these different forms of retaliation that you experience. So you were getting a little cynical. So to see people do this, I really think makes a difference to
After
you.
I got laid off from my newspaper, I worked for a couple of years on my own website, and then I got a job at a TV station. The first thing that happened was a police spokesman sent an email to my boss saying Stephen Janis is a jerk, blah, 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 fire him. That man actually...
And a cop hater.
That man right now is actually the head spokesman for the Secret Service. So, yeah. Anthony Giuliani. I think his name is, And so he decided that the best thing to do was take a reporter who had lost his job when his newspaper closed because he had provided honest coverage of the police department.
Exactly.
And try to take away his job and his health benefits because I hadn't seen a doctor in like 3.5 years. So really wonderful people. I really, have a lot to say about their character.
Absolutely. You have some not friends in some very high places.
But think about it. This was in 2011. This is 4 years before Freddie Gray and 5 years before. So was I right or was I wrong? I was right about the Baltimore freaking police department.
Yes, you
but
were.
They tried to take my freaking job.
That is absolutely right.
So
and
I'm
sorry. That's why I thought you should share that.
Yeah.
So when he says, it affects him and makes him feel hopeful, this man had all the reason in the world for cynicism. So it means something.
I am very thankful that there are people who are willing to go out there and do this difficult work and all on their own. And it just gives me a lot. It makes me feel good. But anyway, that's all I'll say. But we've got to get to the next guest.
Okay, yes. So I'm just, thank you for letting me have you share that. Okay, so our last guests are actually kind of a duo, and they have been unrelenting in their coverage of some of the most vexing police departments in the country. They're a special team that have been involved in high-profile cases that have led to a major settlement with the Los Angeles County Sheriffs, all due to the footage caught on their cameras. They also include one of the so-called OGs of cop watching, TomZebra. Tom's uncompromising coverage of cops in LA has made him a legend in the world of YouTube activists. Also, the fact I think he's been doing it for almost 20 years. I think some of his early cop watches are actually on VHS. That's how long TomZebra's been doing this.
That's amazing.
And they also made one of my favorite clips ever, where they did a bit of an imitation of a show that I'm kind of fond of. Maybe we could just take a little peek at it. A little peek.
Hi, I'm LauraShark, and welcome to my channel. As I always do, I want to make it clear, the purpose of this channel is to hold law enforcement accountable. Today we're going to achieve that goal by examining the most recent reports of an Inglewood police officer being arrested. Before I get started, I just want to tell any of you watching, if you have a video of police misconduct, please privately email it to me at laurasharkcw@yahoo.com. So Daniel, can you explain how a veteran police officer in the narcotics division gets arrested for narcotics? Isn't he supposed to arrest people, not be arrested?
Yes, the hypocrisy here in the city of Inglewood is off the charts. A 21-year veteran of the narcotics task force has been driving around in a Ferrari delivering kilos of cocaine to the good people of Inglewood. But I've heard the prices have been really good.
Do you know the name of the officer and any other positions he holds?
Johnny Baca was the representative for the police union in the city of Inglewood. It's actually his job to protect criminal police.
Okay.
Oh, Taya, just let me say something.
Okay.
That is good reporting, because knowing that the Coke price was low or a good price, that's the kind of detail.
That's right.
That separates the regular reporter from the top-notch investigative reporter.
That lets you know that reporter hit the streets.
He hit
and that's what we respect around here.
I mean, I've been doing stand-ups for 5 years, but Tom just knocked me right out of the park.
He did. He knocked you out of the box.
I've never
on
had that
one.
kind of detail in my reporting.
Also, his sweatshirt was cool.
Mad respect for that man.
Yeah. And I liked Laura's bookshelf. And before we get started, that sounds really familiar. I'm not sure why it sounds so familiar.
I told Laura she needed more books, though.
She needed more books on her shelf.
Yeah.
She even had the glasses. It was so awesome. Okay. Just for any folks that are here, they did a version of the show we do, and we thought it was basically the best thing that we've ever seen.
We did.
So you should go check it out on their channel because it's kind of great. And it also has really good reporting in it. So I have to welcome TomZebra and LauraShark.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for being here.
Hi. That's kind of ridiculous.
We appreciate you.
It was like one of those last minute things. I'm like, I need books.
Tay and I have plenty of books. If you need some, we can ship them
That's
out
right.
to
We
you.
can ship
actually, I
some
have
out
a lot.
to
And if you notice, there's like Egypt. I don't know what the. I don't know. It was so random. I was like, oh no, grab Egyptian books or something. I do have books.
We just wanted to also say that Tom has been having a little bit of an issue with his video. So at some point, we might have the technical difficulty of just having his audio instead of his visual. So just to let you know, we're not doing it on purpose.
Right.
It's just, one of those technicalities. So to both of you first, I just wanted to give you guys both a chance to comment on Eric's recent indictment. You were there when we were out in Colorado, spending time with Eric, checking in
Prior
on
to
what was happening. We were there prior to sentencing.
Yeah.
So we certainly know that you know Eric well. I just thought maybe you'd like to have a chance to comment on his recent indictment and any concerns that you might have about it. And either one of you can take this question first.
I'll go. If you can, hopefully you can hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah. Everything you guys said is true. It's not surprising in the least bit that they've retaliated against him, and they're going to do everything they can to keep him in jail. And if you think about it, I think that's probably why Eric Brandt is the person he is anyways. It's because of how unfair they are and the fact that that's what they do every chance they get. They retaliate against people they don't like instead of doing their job.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising to me one bit, but hopefully that's going to light a fire under his butt, and when he gets out here, hopefully he'll go right back to cop watching.
I hope so too.
I hope so too, but I have a feeling he may
might be taking a break.
Retire to a quiet
I think
life.
I think Eric is ready
for
to
his own
retire.
mental health.
Laura,
Yeah.
did you want to comment on Eric's recent indictment?
He definitely covered everything. Like we talked about it in length, and it just, honestly, it just breaks my heart. There's a lot that you risk when you do what we do. Especially him.
Yes.
I'm almost at loss of words. Just how that turned out.
Understandably.
If I can add, I'd like to say something about the judge, Morris Hoffman. I know that a lot of people have criticism about him, but one of the interviews I watched, he was explaining how if you're in the shoes of the defendant, if anybody else would have done what they would have done, then that's not a crime at all. And I don't think very many of us have been in the shoes of Eric Brandt, where he spent so much time in jail as an innocent person. And he's got, how many laws are in his name? He set precedent repeatedly. So,
yes.
So in the overall scheme of things, he's the one that is righteous. And like the judge said elsewhere, if any other person would have done those things, like in Eric Brandt's shoes, and I think anyone else would have. I can't imagine being locked up for so long as an innocent person.
Yeah,
At the very least, under those circumstances, of course you're going to say something that isn't nice about the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's true. Eric is set president in the 10th Circuit for Freeman Police.
With Liberty Freak Abity.
Yes. Yep. So that is very true. Among other things.
Among other things.
There's many other lawsuits he won.
Right. Also, there's a lawsuit that he participated in that resulted in the Englewood Police Department receiving body cameras about 18 months before any of the other police departments, as well as guaranteeing them some certain retraining as well, certain constitutional retraining, which is good for everybody. I even want constitutional training.
So, Laura, let me ask you, what's it like out on the streets now? Like, how are cops behaving? Are they responding to your work? How are things going?
Or are they like, oh no, it's LauraShark?
They run from the camera. Like
they run from the camera.
Like we go out. Yeah, no, we go out. Quite a bit, and we as soon as we get out or walk up, it's like suddenly it's over. It's like wow, who knew?
Really?
Yeah, no, it's almost annoying. It's like what? Come on, guys,
so they're ruining your videos. You can't even make a video.
Chase them to the like their little substation or the like. Come on, please.
That's so funny. But you know what? That's great. But honestly, though, in a way, that's great, because what you're doing in that process is there's someone who might have been harassed, who might have been, having an unconstitutional arrest or having their rights violated, and the officers decide, you know what, it's not worth it. They're still doing it.
It's just a matter of. It's just a matter of. There's like a new crowd. Like I kind of see it as like there's they obviously. I mean, they have so many departments, like sheriff, for instance.
Right.
And they have like new rookies coming in, and at certain points there's like. Right now, I feel like there's a brand new one for the last year that we haven't figured out their places yet, like their path, the way that they get to each location, kind of a thing. We don't got that down the way we had prior. We could find the same guys, in the same places mostly, but not anymore. And a lot of them, they've made a name for themselves. Like Sabatine had a whole thing because he, I think, threatened the rapper. He said he was going to put one in his chat. It's just like a whole. It's just like, I missed them because they were. I don't know. It was a little entertaining. Now these guys like literally just don't say anything. I'm like, this is no good.
Let me ask you something, because there's a case that that you worked on that really stood out to me and was absolutely life-changing. And this was the case of Christopher Bailey. You recorded some of the. I mean, I've witnessed a lot of police brutality, but this was truly terrible. And you were there live on the scene. And can you just talk a little bit about how your video footage helped him and, the lawsuit that followed, and maybe even some information about the officers or detectives who were involved, if you don't mind?
Okay, so to make a really long story short, we did show up in the aftermath. We were directly after. They must have just done their last strike on him or something, And initially when we arrived, I didn't see him, we did hear a deputy involved in a fight. So I was aware of the I've come to these scenes before, and maybe they have they're a little roughed up and they're getting in an ambulance or something. But when we first got there, we didn't see him. We could kind of see where the deputies were around, and then we heard him, and he said, "I want to live," and it was like, wait a minute. Oh, they have him on the ground. And it was just this whole, it was like in slow motion after that, where it was like, we recognize all these most of the deputies. And at this point, we know them all now. But it was almost like, I don't know. I could say I was shocked. I was not expecting when they sat him up in the condition of space. It was horrific. And it was just like it really just couldn't not bother just even the most critical person, of what we do. It was horrific. And so for almost a year to the day, I did not know this man's name, and I kind of had to I was started to resolve to the fact that I probably never would, because a lot of the times we don't see. Most of the time, we don't see these individuals again after they have their contact with law enforcement. So I had almost become I had to accept that, and his lawyer made a comment on the video. She quickly took it off, but it just that contact and I have to say what we saw was pretty bad, but hearing it in detail to the extent that what they did to him, it was almost I don't want to say it was worse, but it was just as horrific. To hear the details of how many times they struck him and hit him and kneed him, and his eyes his injuries were, his eye socket or his eyeball was dislocated from his orbital bone, they fractured his orbital bone. What we saw was just what looked like he didn't even look human. Is this something that I kept saying in the video, and like they played a news clip and you can hear me say he doesn't even look human. I mean, he wasn't, he didn't. And I think they referred to me as a bystander with a cell phone or something, and I was probably the Band-Aid. But like Daniel and I just, Daniel has, we both have our own way of responding to these situations, and he had currently had like a situation with a deputy that he was kind of asking about, but everything that we thought in the moment was very true. Like Daniel was calling it like before we knew the facts, and it's just, and it sucks to be right. And I mean, we met him over Zoom. Like he is still to this day afraid to set foot in California. Like he took off to Texas as soon as his he was medically able, because he was hospitalized for quite a bit after that. He's still like getting surgeries, because he's basically blind in his left eye. There was a clip from Eric's trial where the judge said, "Who in the world thinks that that's okay?" And I literally I could not have put that perfectly, like in this instance of, but that one it didn't feel that wasn't even with Eric, it didn't fit. But with this, it's like, who in the world thinks this is okay? It's just not, I don't know if I want to add something.
Laura, thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to ask Tom, not just about this situation, but, Tom, you've been out on the streets for 20 years. How have things changed for you and with your relationship? Have police changed at all in the 20 years you've been doing this? I'm just kind of curious.
Good question.
I'm going to say, since, I started having more people helping me, like Laura joined me, Jody Cat joined me. So like there was a few of us in the same area that I was working regularly. And as far as how things changed, the police don't even come out of the station anymore. Like the Lawndale sheriffs, any of the areas, those like productive feeding grounds. If it was like fishing, those were the areas that I would go, because there was plenty of police instances to record. Well, now I could drive through these areas every night, all night long, and you won't find a cop unless they're responding to a call. They stay inside the station, they respond to a call, and they go straight back to the station. So
interesting.
I don't know how many millions people spent to put these police on the street, but for free, I took them back off the street and put them in the station with the help of, my associates. And to be honest, if anything, the crime rate has probably gone down, because it seems to me like the most serious crimes are committed by the police.
Wow.
At least the ones that I see.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it is true. The crime has gone down over
surprisingly.
the past year from pandemic highs. And that has been amid a police officer shortage.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Difficult to explain when you say the police are the key to public safety. But currently, right now, we have a really record drop in violent crime, and also record low employment in many police departments, including ours in Baltimore, where we've had a 20% drop in homicides, and we're pretty much under record low staffing. So really difficult conundrum for police partisans who want to save.
It's interesting you should say that, Stephen, because it's almost as if you two are drawing the conclusion that policing doesn't necessarily stop crime, that's a cleanup crew. By any chance, are you familiar with a book called You Can't Stop Murder? Are you familiar with that book?
Yes, I wrote that book.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And you actually, it's interesting.
That was the thesis of the book, that, proactive policing does not reduce crime and it only causes more, as to Tom's point, causes more problems than it solves. And that is, I think, borne out in Baltimore, and I think in Los Angeles too as well. Yeah. Because as Tom and Laura were covering it, there was that report by the ACLU about the Los Angeles County Sheriff, and it was insane what they concluded. You guys remember that report, right?
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, there was actually the investigation that they had put out. I sent my video of Christopher Bailey. I sent my video in with several others, and that's what I think the lawyer said, that the district attorney said that she, that's how she found out or something.
Wow.
Let me just respond to M-Star Media, who's... I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
I think you guys, if I'm correct, you guys were talking about the investigation where like 90% of their time is spent on traffic stops.
Yes.
Right? Is that what
Yes.
you're
Yes.
referring
Yes.
to?
Yes.
Yes.
And our videos not only prove exactly that, but probably 90% of those traffic stops are fake traffic stops. They're profiling where the person did nothing wrong, and at the end of the search, the police can't even come up with the reason why they made that stop in the first place. And if you take that all into consideration, we're wasting $4 billion to be pulled over for no reason. And I'll let you get back to what you were. I just want to make that point.
No, Tom, I'm so glad you made that point. It's really important. No, I just wanted to mention to M-Star Media, and I really appreciate you bringing it up. She said, she said, what are we getting our stats from about crime going down? Just in my case,
Times.
Well, just very specifically, the Uniform Crime Report is where various police agencies send in their data. Unfortunately, not all the police agencies do, but that's where they're supposed to send in their data about, whether homicide, murders, etc., carjackings, theft, all the different varieties of crime. Something that we saw in particular in our city, Baltimore, is that although carjackings are up quite a bit, one of the things that we're most concerned about is homicide in our city and shootings. And very fortunately this year, we've seen a precipitous drop, despite the fact that we're, maybe like 600 police officers short?
Yeah, 600 or something.
So there are other cities that are also experiencing this. So, if you have a chance, you can, the data from the FBI's Uniform Crime Report is actually accessible. You can also
online,
get it through,
just look it up.
Get it through the Bureau of Justice Statistics. There are a couple different ways to access it.
It's all broken down by locale, by municipality.
Right. So you can take a look.
Yeah.
And so, we are speaking from our personal experiences in the areas that we're in, but there have been journalists who've done really solid work to show that this is an overall national trend. So it may be in relation to specific crime that we're very concerned about, like homicide, and it may be like in our city, things like carjackings are high. So maybe you're looking at a particular crime stat and we're looking at another. So maybe that's where the disconnect is happening.
Well, let's ask one last question because we're almost at 2 hours.
Can I please ask about the cannabis?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So,
last question.
Tom and Laura, this is, I loved this piece that you did. And because to me, in every aspect of it, it showed how important a cop watcher is. So Tom and Laura arrive on the scene, a young man and his girlfriend's a passenger.
Darius Dandy.
Say the name again?
Darius Dandy.
Darius. Darius is driving. They're pulled over. They're harassed. I think it's originally about window tint, and they see that they have some legally purchased marijuana. And so they start recording this, and Laura can talk a little bit about what a strange DUI test they gave. But what really jumped out to me, which just touched my heart so much, is that the police, after taking away her boyfriend and taking away the car, just left the passenger standing on the road, without her phone, without ID, without any. They took her too. I thought they left her on the side of the road.
So they took her to the station. Essentially they did. They took her phone. They took everything that she had in the car. And when they towed the car, they took all her bond. And I was repeating to them, are you going to let her get any of these things? These are the obvious things that you need to be able to carry on with your evening while the car's. Yeah, no, they took her back to the station. She actually refused to get out of the car.
So you actually went to the station with them to help.
Yeah, so we followed
wonderful.
them to the station, and then they basically set her on her own. But luckily, we were there, and I offered to give her a ride to the impound lot. Mind you, the show that it was after that is just. It was raining, so technically, if we weren't there, she would have had to walk. What was it, Daniel? How the miles to the tow?
It would have been a couple-hour walk to get to her stuff, but then without a release, they tried to send her without a release. She would have had to walk all the way back, and then
and then it was after hours. So
she would have had to walk for 8 hours, and she would have never accomplished getting her wallet, her keys, anything.
Yeah, and she had to pay. Well, she didn't even have the money because she didn't have her wallet or anything. So I loaned her money so that she could pay the after hours cost to be able to get these most obvious items of her. I mean, it was so okay. So the worst part of this is that they did what was it, Daniel? That they it was under the what was it? It was like a DUI investigation. He claimed.
Yes, the whole thing was just a charade because. Apparently, we've caught them too many times, and they're trying to not admit or let on when we catch them doing illegal searches.
Right.
So they just were framing the guy for a marijuana DUI. And I think you know about marijuana DUIs. They're bogus on their face.
Wow.
Excellent.
Well, I think
Excellent.
we appreciate you guys. I think Tay, we are almost up to 2 hours.
I don't want to let them go.
We have to.
We barely even got the chance to really talk to them.
I know, but we'll have them back. We'll have them back.
It was nice.
Congratulations.
Can I
let me
just
let me just say I want to congratulate you guys. I have a ton more things to talk about, but we'll save that for another time. It was great show. I enjoyed watching it, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I will defer to my partners.
Well,
no, you're right. I'm sorry. It's so rare to have like Tom and Laura at the same time, and like between the two of them, they have amazing stories and just so much to share. So
could you guys keep making fake police accountability reports, though, please? Because we like to watch
We're
them.
actually working on another one I was telling you
I'm
about
so
earlier
excited.
this week, but
just
I
do one for our
I
5th
didn't have time
anniversary.
to.
I would love that.
Oh, yeah,
at least by the
sure.
6th. At least by the 6th.
Yeah. No, they're working on one now.
For sure. I'm working on it now, so yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
I was hoping to have
thank
it
you
ready.
guys. Thank you so much.
We appreciate
Good
you
night,
so
everybody.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Bye, Laura.
Yes, bye.
Bye, TomZebra. Hey, if you guys haven't already subscribed to their channel, that's LauraShark CW. You're seeing right there. That's how you find her channel. You might not realize this, but in the world of cop watchers, there aren't a lot of females out there. So please make sure to support them, like LauraShark CW. And of course, you got to honor the OG TomZebra. So make sure to go check out his channel as well. And all the other wonderful cop watchers that we've had here tonight. I mean, I think most of them already knew James Freeman and LackLuster and the Batusai and Otto The Watchdog, but please make sure you go sub to Laura's channel
that
for
the
me.
cops are afraid to come out because Tom's out there.
I know. I love that.
Just a guy with a cell phone and a
I know
and a
that they've
camera on
done
his
that
head.
to him. I mean, I have to okay, I won't. Can I just have one little question of Laura? One little
more question
One more.
quickly.
Okay, Laura, while you're still here, because you're not gone yet, I have to ask. Okay, you guys have gotten a lot of attention on YouTube.
question.
You've had a lot of impact. Do the police treat you differently? Like when you show up, are they like, oh no, it's Laura, oh no, it's TomZebra? Or do they just act like they don't see you? Like what happens when the cops see you?
I don't know, Daniel, what do you think?
Definitely. I think a lot of them are they're scared of Laura. It seems like, or if she asks more serious questions, I'm more likely to put things off and just say hello and be social. Yeah, she's not as nice to them, so there's a lot of them that
I'm just factual. I'm just real. I have passion, and he says a lot more in his own when he posts videos. Like he gets to the point and like that kind of in his nerd. But like me, I am quite like no, I know what you did. Or wait, come back. No.
That's great. Thank you.
One last thing. I know we're ending the show, but after working with these guys for so many years, it's hard to not become friends with them. So, despite the awful.
I think we just lost him.
No. He says he's friends with them. I don't claim such a
Got
silly
it.
thing. That's so ridiculous. Good night.
Okay. Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Thank
it
you
was
so
great
much.
to have you both,
Thank
and
you.
we definitely want to see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Okay,
That was amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Okay.
I love the idea that they're scared of her. Like she's mean to the cops. That's because she doesn't. I've met Laura in person. She's not a mean person. She's a petite person. She's not intimidating in any way. So to imagine her like being mean and standing up in that way is kind of amazing.
Absolutely.
And I just have to thank all of our guests
Absolutely.
for just their insight, being willing to, spend their time with us, and, just for your patience to stick with us and talk to us individually. And I want to thank all of you for the amazing work that you do. You each have your own styles. You have your own way. And what's even better is that you always find a way to somehow support and help each other. You've created an amazing community, and I'm so glad to be at least a small part of it. So, Stephen, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
As I was talking about the theme of the show, I mentioned a phrase that is very familiar to you. a community that has something in common. But it's actually a play on words on a book by philosopher Alphonse Lingus, who wrote a book called A Community with Nothing in Common. So you spoke to this philosopher, you wrote about him. Can you talk a little bit about that book in relation to cop watchers?
Well, and to be really quick, because we don't have a lot of time, but, you brought up something that really struck me. Really, I mean, it almost made me upset because I was reminded of things that happened to me when I started covering police, 15 years ago, and we were in the midst of zero tolerance, and things, police were crazy and they were shooting people in the back and all these horrible things were happening, and I was trying to cover it and report on it in truth, and they tried to destroy my life, basically. I mean, they pulled me over like 40 times.
Very true.
They would always harass me. My editor said I was a cop hater. The things that would happen to me were really horrible, and there was other things they wrote about me as if I was some sort of crazy freak. But then, in 2016, when the federal government comes in and says unconstitutional and racist policing and all this stuff, it was like, it was even more painful for me because in many ways, the damage had been done, but it affected me deeply. It made me like kind of a paranoid person, and a person who doesn't trust people much, and a person who, feels isolated. But the whole wonderful thing about talking to these people, the whole amazing thing is all these people who I really have very little in common with, on a regular basis, that I don't even live in the same cities they do, make me feel like I'm not alone in this effort to hold power accountable, and as painful as it was for me when I know that people like Otto have gone through so much, James Freeman, I know Eric Brandt is in prison right now, I know all these people have suffered, and so I feel like I have some connection to something, that in many ways makes it all worthwhile, because truthfully, I'll tell you this, you can write all these things about police and about how bad policing was in Baltimore, but when the Justice Department comes around and no one says, hey, you did a good job, we appreciate what you did, we understand you suffered. People like Anthony Guglielmi don't apologize to you for calling you a jerk, or some of the other stuff they did to me. I mean, I could just go on and what happened to me. I mean, dragging me into a trial board and screaming at me and subpoenaing me all the time to go into court. All these really things when all I was doing was writing. I mean, I wasn't dealing drugs. I was just writing the truth. Exactly. And so I feel connected to the people that we report on, because they have been through this too, and I understand the impulse. Like the people who we talk to, Batusai, these people aren't doing it. Like, even though people say, well, it's all about YouTube clicks or something, they are doing it because they believe in this process of holding power accountable. And so in that sense, we have nothing in common and everything in common. And it's helping me a lot personally, because I just feel angry sometimes when you bring that up. It's just, I just don't understand it really. I don't understand. But I think I read once about, I think it was like a woman who was a reporter. She said, you think when you cover the truth and you say the truth that everyone's going to come running and say it's the truth. That's not what happens. And as one of our guests pointed out, police don't really serve the public, so to speak. They serve this great inequality machine, and that's part of the reason. Anyway, so it's isolation.
Well said.
Anyway, thank you.
No, very well
I just wanted
said.
to say that.
No, and you should say that. And what's interesting, someone said, does Stephen know former Baltimore cop Michael Wood? I remember him.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I actually, we both intervied Michael Wood, and he went on to do some. He went on to do some interesting things, like like rob veterans of campaign. Allegedly.
Right.
Mismanaged some donations.
Let's put it this way: he's been very. Initially, he was very revealing and talking a lot of truth.
He was really,
but then he became muddled in controversy.
Insights.
But yes,
I'm sorry.
We are aware of him.
Allegedly
okay.
Mismanaged these funds. Let me be clear. So, just once again, I want to thank all of the wonderful cop watchers and activists who joined us tonight, both on the channel and in the live chat. I've seen you. I might not have been able to put up everyone's comment, but I really did try to at least put up some of them and read them. And thank you. Thank you, Russell. You're my favorite too. Thank you. That's a very sweet comment. So I just wanted you to know I was, looking at all these great comments. I'm going to be in the comment section. In the chat. I'm going to be in the comment section later. As always, I do like a PAR comment of the week, and I try to pick out a comment. So I'll be doing that later as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who is participating. And I just want you to know how lucky we feel to be able to cover this vibrant and eclectic and fascinating community. And it is a thought-provoking collection of people, to say the least. And we are so grateful to have been able to tell their stories. Stephen, I'm about to give my 5th year anniversary rant.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you, too.
Thank you.
I mean, you were a member of the mainstream media, and now you're in a very different world.
Yes, I am. But I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Okay.
Than here, next to you, as Jay-Z said. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but I'm here.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice quote of the Jay-Z.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done. You're in a different world. Is there anything you want to share about covering this phenomena? Or
well, as I said before, I feel kindred spirits here, and it's been a great 5th anniversary gift for me to hear from people who have struggled with the same things I have, and it makes me feel good that we are together in some ways, a community, though not together in the same space, but by the same ideals, and that feels good. So I'll say that.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
Okay. Now it's my turn. As I've discussed at the beginning of the show, all of our work on the Police Accountability Report is driven by a community. People who care enough to watch and share and comment and even film cops. It's driven by something we would call an audience, but I would characterize it more accurately as a collective of people focused on a single idea. Self-governance requires participation, and good governance requires even more active involvement. And what I mean is that what I see as I report on the variety of people who watch or simply watch us is a movement tied to more than an ideology. That is, it's a group of people acting within their individual capacities to facilitate something more important than their own needs, a collective good, a common good. I mean, think about it. When a person appears on our show to discuss an encounter with police, it's more than simply an opportunity to tell their story. It's an affirmation that standing up and pushing back and participating is more than what is more than what philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre would call a useless passion. It is, at its core, an acknowledgement that democracy, freedom, and our essential rights require work to maintain them. Meaning if we don't fight each and every day for self-governance, we will lose it. And that's what this show, my show, Stephen's show, your show has taught me. It has forced me to look beyond the past implications of a dystopian future where our personal agency has been rendered impotent, and it has inspired me to comprehend the real meaning of a single individual coming forward and standing up for themselves when police and the mainstream media would brand them as criminals. And it tells me that despite the cynicism that pervades social media and the apathy of the internet, there are people who believe that fighting back really matters. I mean, is there anything really as profound as an average citizen whose rights have been trampled by police bravely coming forward on a Zoom call to tell their story? Is there anything more inspiring than the premise that a single person's story, a story that can be painful and even embarrassing to tell, can actually change all of our lives? But this is exactly what I've witnessed, and I've literally watched it unfold in real time. This community and the people who are part of it, you are changing the world for the better, and you who are watching the live stream, who are in this live chat right now, are part of it too. How do I know? Well, let me count the ways, so to speak. Let me tell you now and show you what I mean. Let me just go back 5 years to one of our early guests, Michelle Lucas. Michelle had been forced to plead guilty to a crime she didn't commit, namely passing a counterfeit bill. The fake money was given to her by a fellow employee to purchase liquor at the store, but the police didn't believe her, and while she was awaiting sentencing, she told her story to us. After our story was published, which exposed the flaws of the case, the head public defender stepped in and withdrew her plea and dropped the charges. And I want you to know it is nearly unheard of for someone to have pled guilty and then have the public defender's office step in to have it overturned. And then there's a story of an Ohio car driver named Lufti Salim. Mr. Salim was parked outside of a pharmacy during the pandemic when an off-duty cop approached him, told him to move, and when Mr. Salim tried to explain that he was waiting for a patient, he started to drag Lufti out of the car and then tasered him multiple times. After telling his story, Lufti sued, and a court tossed his suit due to, you guessed it, qualified immunity. But Mr. Salim persisted, and just recently, a circuit court panel overturned the decision, giving him another chance to fight to hold police accountable. Or I could talk about Caleb Dow. Caleb was charged with resisting arrest and felony escape by Milton police. They posted his mugshot on Facebook and hinted that he had been involved in domestic violence, all of which was untrue. After telling his story and showing the Ring camera video that proved the officer was lying, Caleb obtained a lawyer, sued, and won a major settlement from the Milton, West Virginia Police Department. Or I could tell the story of one of our very first guests, Erica Hamlet, whose 16-year-old son was confronted by an off-duty Baltimore cop who pointed a gun at the teenager while he was waiting for a bus. The officer was never charged, but Hamlet fought both the department and the city to hold him accountable. And just a few weeks ago, a jury awarded the family $250,000. These are just a few of the stories that we have been told over the past 5 years. Tales of malfeasance that all started with a simple idea. You, meaning you, the people, will not tolerate the diminishment of our rights or a government that feels free to violate them. And this is what it's really about. It's not just police or law enforcement or laws or legal precedents. What this battle really amounts to is to fight to preserve the most precious right we have, the right to self-governance. What we're really witnessing when we report on these stories is a collective act of faith that these rights not only matter, but are worth fighting to maintain. That the phrase, we the people, means something tangible, and that to live in a free nation governed by equality and respect for the voice of the citizenry means we have to speak up. And speaking up comes with risks, and speaking out is often met with retaliation. Just consider how much jail time Eric Brandt is serving for doing so. Even though what he said was offensive, his goals, his objective, are not only worth considering, but debating so we can understand the limits of free speech and the price of imposing constraints upon it. So I guess what this show has taught me is that courage lies with the people who take the risk to stand up. I mean, why else would Eric and Abity and Monkey 83 stage protests around Denver over the rights of the homeless, get arrested for it, and then win settlement after settlement with the city of Denver? Why else would James Freeman turn his attention to the court system of New Mexico? And what other motivation could Otto have in mind to continue to fight the system that tried to force him to plead guilty and denied him the right to see his children? It's all an act premised on the idea that our world can be made better, that our rights are worth protecting, and that our freedom is non-negotiable. Believe me, there are days when I despair, moments when even I have doubts. But what always inspired me to double down and keep moving forward is you, the people who care, the people who not only want better, but demand better, the community that uplifts us all, and the community that I am so proud to be a part of. And it's a community that most definitely has something in common. And it's our humanity and our love of our constitutional rights. So I would like to thank all of you again. And I want to make sure...
applaud your 5th anniversary. You need to applaud for that. That was
well. I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interject there, but no. I was stunned.
Well,
I was moved. So,
Thank you, Stephen. I hope other folks... Oh, someone said this is not the comment of the week. I just want to make sure to thank the amazing folks who helped make this show special. First, my dear friend and my very first moderator, Noli D. Hi, Noli D. And my second moderator, but no less appreciated, the kind-hearted Lacey R. And David. I have to thank the gentlemen behind the scenes who helped make the show possible tonight, Cameron Grandino and David Hebden.
Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, you guys.
And hats off to our editor-in-chief, who's a great supporter of our work, Max. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
And I have to thank each and every one of you who shows up to our live streams. We appreciate you. And I hope that you know it because we did this crazy live stream for you. That's why we did it, so we could interact with you. And you guys, when we don't have the Thursday night live chat, I really do miss you. I honestly do. I hope you miss me too. Okay, so just to let everyone know, this is a time when I thank my amazing patrons, okay? Like I saw Matter of Rights down here, okay? So this is when I thank them. So please make sure to listen up for your name. Please forgive me if I stumble or mispronounce something. And I just want to say thank you so much for your support. Are you ready for the Patreons?
Yes.
Patreons.
Yes.
Okay, so first, for our PAR patrons, first coming up, our amazing, loyal, and exceptionally intelligent associate producers, Lucida Garcia, David Keeley, John E.R., Louis P., and then, of course, our wonderful PR super friends who are so generous and help us fight for justice with their donations and their moral support. Matter of Rights, Chris R., Kenneth Lawrence K., Pineapple Girl, Shane B., and Angela True. And of course, people with wonderful and great taste in YouTube videos, our official patrons. And I'm only saying the first letter of the last name because I don't accidentally want to reveal too much information about someone. So, Gary H., Michael W., Joseph P., Dur Devil, Nope, Patty, Kemi, XXX, X, Blibbits, Dante, Kipke S, John M, Joe 6, Six Estate AZ, Kyle R, Calvin M, Stephen D, Rod B, Celeste Dupuis S, PT, Just My 2 Cents, Talia B, Tamara A, John K, TrueTube Live, Liz S, Gary T, and last but not least, our loyal, kind, and most certainly good-looking friends of PAR. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ryan Pintilla, Sean B, Ronald H, Hugo F, Social Nationalist, Marcia E, Tim R, Justin P, Conrad B, Wingate B, Bill Ding, Ninden N, David W, Regina O, Jodes, Frank F.K., Mary M., Mike D., Linda Orr. And Linda, I got your card. I love that picture of Alaska you sent me. That was so sweet. You're an absolute sweetheart. I've saved your letter. You're awesome. Chris M., Dean C., Shannon P., Cameron J., Farmer Jane, USA, Marvin G., Kimmy Cat P., Kurt A., Daniel W., William T.G., DB, MC, John K., Potshot, Stephen B., Cindy K., Sescal S., Keith Bernard M., John M., Janet K., Mark William L., Noli D., Guy B., Ron F., Alan J., Trey P., Julius Geezer, Omar O., Umesh H., John P., Ryan, Lacey R., Douglas P., Andrea J. O., Siggy Young, Stephen J., Michael Stephen L., Default Urine, Peter J., Joel A., Larry L., Artemis L.A., Jimmy Touchdown. He was our very first patron. Kenny G., David B., Shushant, I'm a lot to unpack, Marlon, Cool Raul 07, Soldier, the Self-Care Maven Cat Negrita, Gary B., Dan F., Eric G., Lorelei W., Luis S., Thomas C., Marvin N., Steve MC, Carson W., Twyla M., Brad W., Cynthia, Corinne D., Mike K., Loretta S., Marciana, Brian M., Glenn R., Mike K., Ias Circle of the Quantum Note, Felonious Punk, Betty R., Byron M., Graham Brigg W., Zira M., and RB MH. That's it. Those are our beautiful Patreons. Those are our beautiful patrons. And I want to thank everyone that spent time with us in the live chat tonight. Like I said, I'm going to be in the comments for a little while later. So you can say hi to me, share what you thought of the show. And of course, I'm going to be looking for my PAR comment of the week. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'll be taking little snapshots and putting some aside so I can have some nice comments of the week for this week and next. We're not going to be back for 2 weeks, but we're working on one heck of a report for you. And it's going to be have in it a cop watcher that you know well. You might have seen him in the comment section today. He was fortunate to not be incarcerated this week. His name is Manuel Mata, and he's going to help elucidate some of the larger problems with policing in this country. So I want to thank everyone. And of course, if you have any tips that you want to share with us, please reach out to us at par@therealnews.com. And of course, you can always reach out to me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Facebook and Twitter. Stephen, is there anything I should allow you to say before I go?
Happy anniversary.
All right. Happy anniversary to you too. Okay. And happy anniversary to my awesome mods, Noli D and Lacey R, and to anyone who I didn't get to say goodbye to. I'm sorry, but I'll try to make it up to you. Okay. Everyone, thanks for joining me. And please be safe out there.
Thank you so much for watching the Real News Network, where we lift up the voices, stories, and struggles that you care about most. And we need your help to keep doing this work, so please tap your screen now, subscribe, and donate to the Real News Network. Solidarity forever.